sharing the
Good time to have that.
Wall sitting on?
Yeah, really.
There's a lot of problems sitting here.
You don't trust me?
Are we ready? Are we captioned?
We're captioned, we're recording, everything's a go.
Okay, I make a motion to open the meeting. Is there a second?
I second.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, is there any board member who has a conflict of interest or anything to disclose regarding the items on the agenda this evening?
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. Okay, with that being said, would the clerk please read or give us the best of
The best of.
the open meeting compliance?
Okay, let's see. If you're joining via the meeting room or on Zoom, with Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to speak directly to the board or put your question in the Q&A, which I'm not seeing. So say that. Yes, okay, in the Q&A. Please do not put it in the chat. I don't respond to chat. Please give your name and address if allowed by law. And let's just have a nice meeting and everybody be respectful.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Lily, could you lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
Oh, behind you.
Oh, geez. We're so
Something
trained.
changed.
Use our best.
Yeah, sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. We'll open with any comments from the public, if there's anybody. Yep.
Robert Corby, 7 Washington Avenue, President of Friends of the Arboretum. I just wanted to update you that NSACIT has completed its project with wayfinding signs on all the trails. They look amazing. I encourage you to go down and see them. I've noticed that there's even more people in there. I walked through today and there must have been 20 people walking through the Arboretum. So I was very pleased. I also want to thank the village DPW for their help with Sahar Sangeeti's knotweed mitigation project. On Saturday, the guys cut all the debris and bagged all the live shoots of knotweed that remain on the site. We will have a second work day with the scouts on Sunday where they will lay down the tarps and apply the dowels to the tarps. But I want to thank Zach in particular because I bugged him on Saturday and he ran over there on his day off. So thank you, Zach, for all your help. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the update. I'm excited about the projects. Anybody else? Any other public comment? Anybody online?
Oh, yes, we have someone. Okay, I just have Arthur. You're allowed to speak. Please give your name and address, please.
Yes, thank you. Art Pierce, 70 State Street. Just want to bring it to the board's attention. I'm not sure if it would be unless I bring it to your attention and or if a appeal has to be submitted to the planning zone of appeal in regards to an application that was made on October 10th, in which I made note on record at the town hall, at the village hall, that I'm not at this point commenting on the specifics of supporting or challenging the application. It's more of the incomplete nature of the application and incorrect information, more specifically per section 210-34.2A2. It's the application speaks to it as a minor site plan application, and that's how it's listed and submitted. Although I believe it should be addressed as a major site plan review under section 210-34, article 28.3. Also within that, there's a multitude of plans, data, and specifics to the application which are totally missing. There was only a single plan called the lighting plan submitted, to try to be brief here. And then secondly, as far as the ZBA application, it was labeled a lot line variance, which I'm not sure if that's a land use variance, number one, and number two, if it's even spoken to within the village code. I think more appropriately, it should have been submitted as an area variance relative to setback requirements, which I believe that's what the applicant was seeking. So I just bring this all to your attention. I'd be glad to speak in more detail. I submitted here again presentation to the Planning Zoning Board of Appeals the other night. And I just question how the application could made it to the board short of an incomplete application, and I believe mislabeled. I'm not challenging someone's understanding as far as the applicant's intent here. It's more of, I just think, proper protocol and review and a complete application, which does beg the question if it should be re-notified. It was carried over, public hearing was opened, carried through to the credit of the Planning and Zoning Board, but I question if it's a proper application, complete and sufficient for advertising required once again.
Okay, thank you for your comment, and we'll probably have someone from the office follow up with you. Appreciate that, Art.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Just to clarify on that, if I may, I think that's October 2nd.
Yeah, I just put a question mark by the date. Okay.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry, whatever I spoke.
Thanks for clarification for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Is there anyone else wishing to comment? Oh,
Not on this issue, but on something else.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Please, do you want to come up?
So my name is Josie Curtis, and I live in Maple Street, 12 Maple Street. And it occurred to me, so I live here since 16 years in Germany, so this is not my native tongue. Forgive me if I say something not quite clear. But it occurred to me that there's a pretty great overturn of new people coming into the village, buying houses, and they have the tendency to chop a lot of trees down. So it seems the last 2 years there are being a lot of trees chopped down, and not just small ones where you could oversee and you could be okay with that, but very old trees. Sometimes they're 200, 250 years old. And so I gave you the paperwork. There are some pictures before and after. Unfortunately, so this was in Ellenbrook. This was just some weeks ago. And that was quite devastating. The new person who moved in, cut down 5 trees in the entire yard, and not just in the backyard, but also in the front. And Ellenbrook, I don't know if you've ever walked through it, they're quite expensive houses because they are very pretty with very, very big trees. And I appreciate very much that you guys plant a lot of new little baby trees along the streets. But the old ones, I think, there might be time to put some rules in place for the old ones. And, the thing is, the village, we do so much historical work here. We take care of the fences. We get applications from the windows that they are wood, and steps should be in wood and things like that. So we really put an effort in it. But we don't put an effort into the living history of our village, right? So we take care of houses, but we don't take care of trees, which are actually older than the oldest houses, built here in the village, so they have seen much more, and they are part of our village, right? And people chop down quite a bit at the moment, the last 2 years. So there are some examples, the paperwork I put down. There are these 2 pages. So one is Elmwood, which is pretty substantial there, the before and after. And the second one is Locust Street. There were also 2, I don't know exactly if they were old trees, but they were really substantial. They were huge. They were very big, very tall, beautiful, right? And there are no new trees. And even if there would be new trees planted, they would be very small. So it really disturbs the view and the impact, what people see in our village and where we live. So I think it takes a lot of quality away of our life, and it cannot be that we put so much effort in all the other historical work, of streets and houses, and don't take care of the trees. So I suggest here some things, and also, there was
a Locust Street and Grand Place as well. There was a very big one chopped down. Walnut trees on Barton were also chopped down. They were in the back, so they were not right on the street. And I do understand that you guys have an impact in the saying, that trees along the street cannot be cut down, but also on private property, which is viewed from the street. We should take that into consideration as well. And I was thinking that there might be, there could be put some rules in place that you say, and I wrote this down, that you say, okay, like trees over 50 years or, over a certain height, that probably would have to be something to be talked to with an arborist, so I'm not a professional to say that. But, there are some ideas that you say, okay, if a tree has a certain height, you don't chop it down, and you also don't cut it down when it has a certain age, because it's part of the village history. This said, of course, there are, a friend of mine said, what if the tree causes problems, for example, with plumbing or sewage or so? Of course, that's a whole different ballgame then, right? Then you have to see, okay, there are exceptions to the rules. If that should be a problem for the sewage or so, then you have to work accordingly, right? You cannot put these rules in place and say, okay, they're for every case. But for example, that you have an independent, if someone says, oh, this is a danger for my house, that you have an independent arborist and not the company who actually cuts the tree down, who gives you advice. But an independent arborist, from the village, I don't know if we have one here, who comes and has a look, because this was done on Elmbrook. One of the trees which was cut down was evaluated 2 years ago by the people who lived there first, and they wanted to see, okay, this is a pretty substantial tree, is this dangerous for my house? And they said, of course, a tree can always fall, right? But the chances are pretty slim, it's a pretty healthy tree, there might be some little branches which come off, but there's no danger. And now 2 years later, or 3 years later, new people moved in and they cut down everything on the entire property. And I'm always thinking, okay, when people are so afraid of trees, then maybe they should not live here. Maybe they should go and live in Mendon in the suburbs where there are no trees, which is also a really nice option, right? And when people say, okay, this tree might fall onto my house, yes, they could happen, right? There's always a chance for that, but it could also, then you shouldn't drive a car and maybe you should not leave your house, because there's always some danger, and that's why we have insurances. And the insurances generally make sure that a tree is not a danger, because otherwise they wouldn't insure the house, right? So if you have a really big old tree which is dangerous, they don't insure it. So I think, we have to do something as a historical village to have some laws and some rules and regulations, and also with trees on private property. Because, a lot of times they are like, with Elmbrook, for example, that have an impact on the entire view of the street. It's not just they have them in the backyard where you cannot see them, but it's in the front, and that makes a big, big difference. And we cannot say, okay, we put thousands of dollars for new, wooden windows in, but we don't care, how it looks when you look outside of the window, right? So I think we have to, work with this. And also, with climate change, it's also a pretty good thing that we have some shadow, that we have, big trees which supply some shadow, and some coolness in the summer, which would be also a good thing, so this is and if you're willing to read through this one page, there's everything said again, maybe in better words than I can do. So I hope you consider this, and I hope we can get some regulations in. And I know that people are afraid to get onto private property on people, but I think this is really urgent. It's really important, because some of the pictures really start to look like a Walmart parking lot, at least to me. And it might be exaggerated, but it really does not look pretty anymore. And I think we should do something about this. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can certainly say
Thanks, Jess.
your English is much better than my German, because I don't speak it. I would like to just say a couple things. I was so struck. I love what you said. Trees are the living history of our village.
Love it.
That is so true. And I could not be more in agreement with every single thing you said. Earlier this year, some legislation was drafted for protection of the entire canopy of the village, just as
Right.
what you were speaking to. At that time, the board decided to not go ahead with it and only look at maybe certain trees that would be known as heirloom trees. So, but I think we can do better.
Yeah.
And I so appreciate you really taking the time and also sort of doing some work on this and presenting us with some additional information.
You know, the thing is, I'm from Germany, and in Germany, you cannot cut down a tree at all. You have to have,
Mhm.
you know, like an arborist from the city or town, and they come and evaluate the tree, because it's, you know, supposedly, you know.
We do have an arborist that does that, and so,
Great.
yeah, and we're hopefully going to be establishing a task force, because we're a climate-smart community,
Yeah.
and so that would be part and parcel, I think, of what a citizens task force would be interested in, is taking a look at things like that
Yes,
as
you
well.
know, there's also one tree, right, Lily? Remember the one tree, which is South Street and
Mhm.
Walton?
Mhm.
And my daughter, you know, was pretty strongly about that, because that was about to cut down. And they were so nice and just, you know,
Yeah.
like cut down some of the
Yeah.
branches which were not as, you know, stable anymore. And there are ways to go around, you know?
There are, but I can tell you specifically about that tree. The arborist who evaluated it also said the tree is still dying. In other words, we're saving it for a few more years, and it's evaluated every year, I believe, Zach, yeah. And so eventually, sadly, it will have to come down, but, you know, we're trying to manage
Right.
how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, even when, you know, private people say, okay, you know, this could be a danger to my house, you know, that, you know, the arborist comes and says, okay, you know, maybe do a minimum of, you know, cutting down and leaving the tree, you know, and I understand, you know, as also with the sewage or so, you know, because my friend had this problem with the tree, and she said, but there are exceptions, you know, to the rule, of course.
Of course there are, of course there are. I have 2 giant oak trees in my front yard, and so it's about managing the trees and making sure they're pruned properly, yeah. I get, yes, I'm sorry, you had.
Why was the...
Name and address, please, for the record.
Abby McRae, 25 Washington Avenue.
Hi, Abby.
Hi. Why was this tree on Elmbrook not one of the historical trees or heritage trees?
It had not
We
been
don't
designated.
have that ordinance yet.
The ordinance hasn't been passed yet.
Oh, I thought it was...
Yeah.
I could-
evaluated
It was a voluntary.
Oh, but that's right, I'm sorry, it was voluntary. You're right.
What the board had decided was any heirloom tree had to be, it was about, so the owner of the property had to voluntarily designate it as a heirloom tree.
There would not have been an ordinance to protect it. It would be only on a volunteer basis by any
By the
property owner. So, yeah, and I can tell you, I've lived in other communities that had, you know, very specific guidelines for managing trees and certain calibers, and you had to, you know, if you wanted to cut down your tree, it had to meet certain requirements for you to actually be able to even remove a tree. You know, public safety, things like that, the trees, you know, damaged, you know, that kind of thing. So I think you're really raising some great
I
points.
agree, and I
Thank
think
you.
that we really need to revisit.
I think that Justin had a comment also. Trustee.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Yeah, thank you very much for the comments. I really appreciate the information that you've put together, and also the guidelines for some of the things that you'd like to see in the ordinance. I think that's really helpful to bring to the board's attention. I just wanted to mention one thing about how the board operates. A lot of the legislation that we consider usually comes from community groups, including in the comprehensive plan. And in the comprehensive plan, one of the reasons that we're talking about heritage trees is because that specifically calls on us to look at an ordinance, a set of laws for heritage trees. And I think there's some hesitation on the board about going beyond things that, you know, have really proven to have a lot of popular support, especially as far as laws on private property goes. But I think that, you know, you bringing this issue to the attention of the board, restarting that conversation and listening to public input like that really helps out to figure out what the future direction is. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
About 47 Washington Avenue, President Friends of the Arboretum. I read this paper, I agree with your issues. And I think one of the things that might help, in addition to identifying the size of the tree, is to specify the species of the tree, because there's trees like box elders, walnuts, invasive lantus trees that grow very large, but are garbage trees and are a liability. But I think there's a fairly small number of cultivated historic trees that have been used since the Great Rochester nurseries were in place during the mid-19th century, like copper beech, American beech, sugar maple, hickory, red oak, white oak, pin oak. This would help define what a heritage tree is. So I think the board is looking for a balance here, and I think your tonight was helpful, and I'd be happy to assist if you'd like some help in defining what a heritage tree should be.
And you know, the ideas, the suggestions or ideas, so this is just like, I have no idea about trees, so, you know.
It's great. No, it's all good, and thank you also for
Okay.
your comments, Bob. I would like to say that the legislation that had been proposed did speak to that, what were non-natives, natives, invasives, all of that, and actually we're updating the tree inventory to reflect, even on our own street trees, what are still invasives that we need to take a look at and maybe remove and put in as a native tree, or certainly a non-invasive species. It's all important. So I'm really thinking I'd like to send you what was drafted as the legislation, if you two would be interested in taking a look at it. Okay? Okay, great. So, yeah, oh, Steve, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I just want to mention something in regard to, Bob had said the Friends of the Arboretum were doing work in there, and we have not received the insurance waivers or liability waivers that were sent out from the Friends.
Okay, we can address that maybe offline. At this point, we're speaking to this particular topic. If we can follow up administratively on that. Appreciate that, though. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments? Thanks again. Okay, all right. Okay, we're going to just switch a little bit of tonight's agenda because someone has a birthday in their family, our attorney. Yep. So we're just going to move down the streetlight agenda item number 1, and we're going to, why don't we just start with the village reserves? We'll just switch out 1 and 6, start in with that. Okay, so I know, Dorothea, you've been doing some work, Dave, you've been helping, everybody's kind of taking a look at how things should be shaping up for funding our reserves. And reserves really are sort of the rainy day funds for our village, where we put essentially kind of seed money in the reserve, and we keep trying to build up a reserve for larger projects that our community needs, whether it's some type of infrastructure project, major repairs, that kind of thing. So we're taking a look at that and trying to set it up. Do you want to just chime in a little bit on this?
I included in the packet, we met, Dave, the mayor, and Zach and I met and discussed the reserves just around beginning of September. So it wasn't ready for that following meeting, but it is ready now, looking at some of the information. Dave, I think you previewed some of these numbers and we're in agreement with what we did. I think this is the board's first visual of this. I did make some adjustments due to attending NICOM and going to reserve class, and just step back a little bit, and I did increase for the general fund, I increased the amount to 35% of the current fund balance budget, just for more cash flow and other concerns, just to make sure we had a healthy balance in there, but still looking to put a healthy amount into reserves. I think there's some more work that needs to be done, especially with resolutions for moving the existing reserves, that existing reserve in the general fund, the repair. It has to be moved in a specific way, and it requires resolutions and other things that Jeff will have to.
So, yeah, so really what the action the board would need to take then would be to direct Jeff to work perhaps with you to put together those resolutions.
But these were my initial,
okay,
after discussions, initial suggestions of the starting amount, you could say the seed money, putting into these reserves.
So I think, so as I walk away from the conversation then and sort of think about it now, there has to be a jumping off point, right, a starting point.
Yep.
And structurally, the question is how much of the general fund do we put into reserves and how tight do we get, right?
Yep.
And then once we define that and why, we define where do we go with it, and when we have extra capital, where do we push it, right? We're going to end up doing these reserve allocations before we do the next update to the long-term capital plan, which has to be done, I think, every year to add one more year to it. So in this particular instance, it's just a question, do you have more money here being allocated than what was originally defined in the budget? That's a good thing. And the question is how far do you go with that relative to pushing down the cash on hand, right?
Correct.
But by and large, you're basically just taking the funding sources over the next 5 years that you need, and not necessarily on a weighted basis, but to a degree, pushing that money here as it's been presented. So it's just a question of how much do we reduce them by or raise them by to meet the funds.
Right, and the board's, our current fund balance policy is 10 to 15%.
Okay, that was my question.
And
How far over
I
are
knew
we?
you were going to go there. And, 10 to 15%, is that a healthy amount to have in reserve? As a fund balance to provide for cash flow when the money comes in, bills go out. And looking at that, and I think I publicly stated, I think our fund balance policy is too low. I don't think it provides enough if an emergency hits. And although reserves are great for emergencies, but sometimes you really need that cash on.
That turnaround time, if
You
there's
really
something
do.
unforeseen.
If I had my way, and it really is up to the board, you can set any percentage. I'd like 50% of your budget, that seems safe to me, but that's not realistic. So after I went through class and I thought about it and the conversations I had, I really felt for general fund, 35% is, for right now. And there's nothing saying that we can't take it down, but you never know what's going to hit.
But just as a starting point,
You can't
is that what you're
control.
thinking?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a start.
Okay, yeah.
But again, that's just,
Mhm.
you always have the ability to go higher or lower, so that's just my initial suggestion.
There was a recommendation, though, from the comptroller initially. There's
No,
no,
the comptroller ain't going to tell you what to keep. They're going to say you have to have a fund balance policy.
right, and there's a certain amount you don't want to blow, so,
And the board established their fund balance policy of 10 to 15%.
right.
But it was
We're not-
lowered, it was lowered over years, wasn't it?
It was at 20% at one
Okay.
time, and then it was lowered 10 to 15%.
Okay.
Again, I agree with higher.
Okay,
Mhm.
And honestly, with not knowing some of the future events that might hit, and again, allowing for cash flow, I don't foresee anybody or the comptroller saying, oh, you're at 35%. I'm going to say, you got a problem.
So it's not a ding.
It's not a ding, but
Okay.
if you're 100%,
yes. No, I just remember at one point they felt that we had too much.
that was with sewer fund.
That was
Okay.
sewer.
Sewer fund, actually, we got dinged because, and we say the word ding, let me explain that to the crowd. When the comptrollers came in and reviewed everything, they said, oh, you got too much in fund balance. That's not a good thing, you should put it into reserves. On the other hand, on general, on that same time frame, we received, I'm going to say a ding again, because we didn't have the 10, we had it, the fund balance policy at that time was 20%. We meant to adjust it to 10 to 15, something happened. So they said, you don't even have the 20%, so that was against us. So that's why I'm comfortable saying I'd rather have 35% in there.
Okay,
It's not too high, it's not too low. It gives us a little cash flow, and then if things are going great and we see more, we can always push more to reserves. That's Dorothea's theory, the board's.
and I'm sure it varies from municipality to municipality.
Well, it does. Everybody has their own thoughts on it, and it also depends on your budget. So right now you have a $2 million budget, so it's based off the budget. It's not based on other factors. So let's say next year's budget goes to 2.5. Again, you got to get to that.
Got a job, okay.
So you want a little leeway. I don't think they intend for you to be right on the button.
Okay.
So my question to the board, and I guess to Jeff, when we look at the numbers in front of us here today, to what degree, as you write the language necessary for us to pass and approve, can we change the dollar amount at the time that we review it? So giving us more time to the degree appropriate to look through these, figure out how much we want to put in each one, if it's different than what Dorothy has presented, can we do it at the time that you bring the language forward, or do we have to do it in advance?
Oh, no. The resolution is not, you can change on the spot.
Right,
Mhm.
okay, that's what I
I could
was.
just leave it blank.
Numbers,
Yeah.
plug
Yeah,
in
he
numbers.
just creates the language and we
Yeah.
can
Just
plug in.
I just have one question to Jeff. If it's moving from an existing reserve, this was the question I think I discussed with you earlier, like the 178,000 in the repair reserve. Now, the transfer and changing of that fund to a newer reserve and the type, that would dictate the dollar amount going in, correct?
No, it just dictates where it has to go.
Okay,
But we don't know really how that was intended,
right,
how it was constituted.
correct.
I think we have to assume it was capital.
So we're okay to
So
go
we're
into
gonna,
that?
so it's going to, it has to go to a capital fund.
Okay.
Not
So-
a reserve fund. I mean, not a repair fund.
Okay, so that, in that way it would. In that way, we need to make sure, like, the 178 goes to,
So it's like for like?
There's two funds that have to move,
right,
because we can't use them now.
correct. I think, big idea, like you said, like to like,
Like to like is what I'm
Right,
hearing.
both have to go to, should go to the capital. And both have to be from the same tax base.
right,
You are referencing in the, what's included in the packet, the repair reserve as the existing reserve.
right. I just want to make sure
So-
that dollar amount matches the previous supposed establishment so that we don't have an issue in that way.
We
That's-
have right now 175,000 allocated to repair, whether or not it's equipment and vehicle, infrastructure, or building.
Right,
So if repair reserve that exists today has to go to other repair reserves
or a
now.
capital, I think it's called a repair reserve, but it was never established, it actually was a repair reserve.
Right, so we have two funds we cannot use. Both of those funds have to go to capital.
And we should be okay with the dollar amounts, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we have plenty then in capital between
Right,
equipment.
that's
vehicle,
the only concern I
infrastructure.
would,
Right.
that, but I'm, yeah,
If it's in sewer, it has to stay in sewer. It's
yeah,
in
no.
general, it's got to stay in general.
You don't
I just
mix the
wanna-
two.
I just want to make sure whatever dollars is equal to what the previous existing repair reserve, and then we don't have an issue where we put something in something it shouldn't be.
So could you comment with regards to these reserves that we're allocating? Of these dollars, how much, if any, were going to go toward the bathroom at the DPW?
At this time, there was no intent to put any money into reserves for the bathroom. That was going to be out of the budget. That was a planned
Yeah.
spend between, we're touching now, ARPA and the general fund, a little bit of cash from general and sewer was taking out a fund balance and had the extra money there.
So is there anything that we're putting here that isn't otherwise noted in the long-term capital plan?
No, I wouldn't say that.
It's not as though we're hyper-funding one thing versus another.
No.
My
No, in fact, when we
recollection
had our
is pretty
discussion,
even.
it was dovetailing,
Yeah,
really, with
Yeah, we
with
looked
what had
at,
been laid
we
out.
looked at the multi-year.
Yeah.
The only thing I did due to my increase of wanting a little more in that fund, in that thing, is I reduced some of those funds down.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to reallocate.
Yeah, the goal was to try to do it on a percentage basis based on forward expenses, and if there were some things, for example, if we were gonna overfund any one or two things, it would be vehicle and equipment or
Right.
infrastructure, because those are the two items, whether or
Those are
not
the
it's
biggest.
roads or vehicles, that we needed to bring current as quick as possible, but without sacrificing contributions to repair reserves or building.
Right, and
So, okay.
keeping to that idea. So I know this is the first time the board's seen the numbers.
Mhm.
And, it does feel, and some of it feels a little aggressive, but that's okay with sewer. I really feel that's, being more aggressive with sewer is okay. With general fund, I backed off. I was a little more aggressive, and I really, for a comfort level,
Mhm.
I think. And honestly, we could fund a couple now and then go back and say, okay, let's fund a couple more as we feel more comfortable. It's really your decision, but this is what I'm going to recommend. We should do this.
So So really the action to, well, first of all, the board needs to really review, because you've just foreseen this. So then the action really would be to have you work with Jeff potentially.
And direct the appropriate language. for
Yeah,
the-
get the language going on this, is what, yeah.
Thank you for doing this. I think, as the mayor was saying, I have to review this a little more closely, but this is a good starting point. So currently, I think the fund balance policy that we have is from 2020. I think.
Yes,
we
2020 it was
before
passed
that
in
was like
December.
2016. And this, so I guess there is something from the comptroller that tells us that we should stay above 10%, but then you can adopt something higher than that, of course, and I don't think I would fuss about it. This does say that we should revise the plan annually at the organizational meeting, and I'm not sure if there's like a part of that's what our policy says, as I'm reading it now. So maybe that might be a lot for the organizational meeting, so maybe what I'm going for is that I think that before we go into readjusting the reserves, we might just want to have a meeting segment where we talk about what the fund balance policies are.
We can bring out
and
the, yeah, I agree with you. We should bring out the fund balance policy, take a look at it,
Yeah, let's
and
review
see
it.
where everybody is comfortable at. Because,
So that's
So we can-
October
we can-
27th, 2020.
yeah, I know it was the end of the year. I can bring the fund balance policy to the next meeting. We can at least start there, and then maybe our first meeting in November, take a look at the reserve amounts
That sounds
again.
good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, if
That's a
anybody
good
has any
idea, thank you.
thoughts, shoot me an email.
The only other comment to the board would be with regards to the reserves, it's been a fairly litigious year. And I often think about how much money we have in reserves to protect against that in the future and make sure we have enough capital there. And you're bringing this down to 35% fund balance. Okay, I feel like that's a pretty fair number, right? To make sure that we're not caught off guard, because we don't want to over allocate to litigation in our budget, but we also want to be
We have a
mindful
little
to
fluidity.
the risk.
And that's some of the things that played a factor in
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
because,
I think the term was unforeseen events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sure.
yeah, we just don't know what's around the corner, but
Right.
we know some things are out there and very well could impact, so having that money to be able to cover that is always important.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want a motion?
Yep, somebody want to make a motion about the direction?
Make a motion to direct Dorothea and Jeff to work on the reserve funding language.
A second?
And resolutions? Or is that good enough, Jeff, just to say, okay, good, okay.
Okay, trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Next up, hotel tax and village revenue opportunities.
So that's me. Again, out of NICOM, there was a lot of budget training, and they talked about, improving your revenues and ways you can do that. And it looks like we may be missing an opportunity here in the village to put up hotel tax. I asked Dorothea to take a look at the history of this, which was brought up, it looks like in 2018. It looks like September 11, 2018, trustee Keaton asked about hotel tax and how to collect it. October 11, 2018, Ms. Zigarelli, deputy clerk, Sarah Farrell, would research other communities. And then it looks like on the 23rd, Mayor Corby was going to meet with the city of Canandaigua mayor, Ellen Palmini, to discuss the options for our village in regards to hotel tax. I had some discussion with past Mayor Corby, and he gave me a little insight as to what happened at that meeting. Sounds like there was a lot going on with the Wilmright project, and it kind of got a little diluted on our end, and that's kind of where we ended the discussion. So I would like to bring it back to the board. I think we're missing opportunities for revenue to bring into our village through hotel tax, basically at the Del Monte, as well as our current B&B. And then moving forward, whatever we do with our Airbnb can also be an option or some revenue streaming that we could tap into. So I just wanted to bring it to the board and see what you guys think.
thanks for bringing it back. I think we should look into it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think it was discussed even further back.
Yeah.
I think trustee Galusha at one point brought it up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I think it was just a
Yeah.
general discussion.
Yeah.
It's really never gone away. It's just.
And neither have the hotels.
It's lingering there because
They're still here.
Somebody to give it legs.
it really
Money's still
needs
floating
legs.
too. Yeah.
It's, as you can see, Alexandria talked and found the process, and it is a lengthy process.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you want to add anything about that? You know, it would be under our own, home rule?
We can do this. I mean, if that's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a question
Awesome.
of moving along.
Right.
We have to enlist the help of our representatives
Mm-hmm,
and have them honcho it in the legislature.
mm-hmm.
It's the same steps I think we did with the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
That took a few years.
No, that took a long
I
time.
mean, that was
It took
lobbying.
8 years.
Yeah, that's,
No,
But who's
it went through
counting?
home rule.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think, I'm ready to take some action that we can move forward with this. I mean, is there any other, thoughts from the board on this?
I think we should begin
Yeah.
to take steps, and I
Okay.
don't know how. I think someone would probably need to be nominated, shall we call it, to
Well,
me.
I think a resolution.
We have to
needs be
adopt, we
prepared.
would direct Jeff to put together the resolution. Am I correct, Jeff, that would be the next step? So it would be direction to our attorney. Yeah. So. Is there a motion?
I make a motion for, to recommend our attorney move forward with a resolution in regards to collecting hotel tax as a revenue for the village.
A second.
We have a second?
Discussion before vote?
Sure. Back to discussion?
I could have thought, I was thinking through my thoughts before. I guess my general thought, as we think about businesses in the village and revenue opportunity as well, there is a revenue opportunity here. I think about the product that is being provided, which is the overnight stay, right? Somebody sleeping in our village. We find utility in that as residents to have a place for people to come and visit, and any added tax, much like if we were to add, though we can't, a sales tax on the sale of goods, right? So that's something we can't do, but we can on a hotel tax. It either increases the cost to stay or decreases the profitability of the business. One of the two, right? Straight up. And we have development opportunities on Shane Place that are potentially a long time from now, maybe not, I do not know. But as you think about investment in the community, particularly on things that I think the community would largely like to see, right? That being the rehabilitation of the old barns on Shane Place. And there may be others. For example, I think about the building next door, right? It's in a district that an Airbnb is possible, right? I believe that is correct. And I don't know the direction by which that building is going, but it's up for sale. Remind me the name of the white building? Wadhams, so thank you. And as a potential future developer or investor in the community, added cost is added cost. And there's a risk associated with putting new money into new development. And while it may be a revenue opportunity, I wonder if it decreases the willingness to invest and by how much. And so I just want to be very careful with regards to this sort of legislation. Once enacted, you have a dial that you can increase and decrease the costs at your volition, that of the board. And I don't know what the percentages we're going for as a tax, right? But if it's not significant enough to, sure, it might bring in money, right? How much and the degree by how much makes me question, I want to see the numbers, right? And I don't know if it's worth it, is I guess where I'm going. Is it more of an annoyance than an actual structure that we want to put in place. I don't mind looking at the language, I just want to be thoughtful as to things that really need to move forward in the village, I think, to change. Is it going to come at the expense of either residents staying, paying more, or an existing hotel and Airbnb that we very much like having in our community?
Our residents paying more, I'm sorry.
Well, visitors.
Visitors paying.
Mhm. Okay.
So this is just general thoughts.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, Justin, did you
I
have?
think it's a good discussion, and those are good thoughts, Dave. I share a lot of those thoughts as well. I think we need to talk about this a little bit more. As far as as I understand it, there's already sales tax on hotel room occupancy, right? So this would be in excess of the sales tax that's already charged. Why? I'm just,
I think to some extent, I mean, they're here in our village, they use our infrastructure. They clearly, Del Monte many times uses the services of the DPW because of backups, and that's a whole other thing that we're addressing as well. I still think that it's something that we certainly should, I agree with the research, though. I mean, I think we should look at it, and typically, my understanding when it's at this level, that it's a minor surcharge, and so it's essentially just part of your overall bill. I'm not so sure that someone wanting to stay at the Del Monte is like, wow, I'm not going to stay here in the village because of a 3% surcharge, or whatever it could be. I think it's money for our community. We have limited sources of revenue streams, really, in our community, and I just think it's kind of something over the transom. I would want us to research how we would collect it, what that would look like, the mechanism for that.
I believe that's all handled by the state.
Would it still be handled only through the state? Okay, because
I believe the state and county, they collect it.
Yeah, maybe we can bring that back to the board.
Because that would be passed on.
Right. So, and because I know a lot of communities already do have that little surcharge or whatever we
Yes.
come up with.
Heads and beds.
Heads and beds.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
right. There we go, so hasn't been.
And it's passed on to the consumer typically.
Mhm.
I don't think it would deter a developer or an investor. I think it's just something that's passed on to the customer.
Every pass-through reduces margin, because there's a willingness to pay, right? Everybody who stays in a hotel has a willingness to pay, and that's the total. And if you add a cost to it, then their willingness to pay doesn't change, right? It's just that amount gets pushed out of margin, or gets pushed up with an inflationary pressure, but the willingness to pay stays the same. So, for example, we all buy stuff in this county and we pay 7 or 8% sales tax. My willingness to pay is understanding of that 7% tax, right? Justin, you made comment that this is a property that pays sales tax on the sale of a good already. We get a part of that sales tax. Their sales may be persistent every single day, but we're getting a piece of that every single day as a percent of the sales tax that distributed. So again, just because the structure exists, I want to be thoughtful as to whether or not we use it. And so I don't mind looking at the language, but my initial reservation is, in the same way as though I wouldn't want to add an additional village sales tax, I'm not necessarily sure just because we can, I want to add a beds and beds tax.
To me, a village sales tax, village-wide, is something completely different than this. But, it's just my own, Justin.
Yeah, thank you. Those are good considerations, Dave. I guess, to me, if, maybe we're charging this because we can, and each of us has to make a decision about, if it falls down to that, because we can get a few percent and some money, maybe that's something we want to do, maybe it isn't. But, as we're talking about here, since there's already a sales tax, it seems to me that what we might be saying is that we're favoring one kind of commerce over another. And, maybe there's an extra cost for the hotels because of a burden on infrastructure, but I'm not sure there is, because we've talked about ways to charge for, sewer inspections and all that kind of thing. For the sales tax, there's traffic and burden on infrastructure for every store visit, and part of that comes from those existing revenue streams. So I guess, I just want to go a little bit further into if this means that we're favoring a certain kind of commerce over another, or if it's just another way to make revenue. I'll make a decision on that basis.
Thank you. I have a quick question, maybe, and you don't have to answer now, but I think it should be part of the research, because the county gets all the sales tax, and then we get a little piece out of that.
And motel tax too.
Some of that too, right.
County does have a separate.
Yeah, they have a separate one anyway. I understand that, but I'm just talking about, so it goes, all that goes to the county, and then we get a piece of that.
Correct.
So do we know what percentage we get?
I don't understand that math.
I know, but I'm thinking maybe we can take a look at how they apportion whatever we get back out of that whole percentage.
It's always worth noting.
We don't just get 7%.
No, it's also worth noting that at any time the county could stop. I mean, there would be a huge fight, but they do share, and there's several counties that do not.
Yeah.
So we are blessed with the sales tax.
Mhm.
But the breakdown of how that's done, you can look into.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting.
And how it's determined our percentage. It's a math science project I know that the county has, and I have not cracked it, nor have I tried, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I've heard it's very
The
complicated.
county's motel tax is on top of the sales tax, and we don't get any of that.
No, we don't get any of it. So they're collecting anyway.
But the counties, which one?
There's a county,
Monroe County.
Monroe County hotel and motel tax.
We don't get it.
Which we don't get anything of. And they collect it from, these heads and beds in our village. Excuse me. Yeah, hang on just one second. The discussion's still with the board? Okay. Yeah, just any other thoughts on that? I mean, I think we should do the research, definitely.
I think so, because I would certainly like to know why the county gets all of the hotel tax.
It's their tax.
Unless
It's theirs.
we got to tap them on the shoulder and say,
Problem of Monroe County tax.
It's their tax.
It's their tax, so we can do our tax.
Oh.
That's why we would pass the
A
home
separate
rule
little
resolution.
tax.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
got
can do
it.
our tax.
Yeah, they have theirs, we would have ours. And they wouldn't be able to have our tax.
Okay, that's,
Okay, we keep our tax.
I think my
Got it.
understanding would be then, if we were to add a tax, right, then it gets added to this aggregate. It then goes to the county, and then based on agreement, it comes back to us.
Goes to the
I
state.
it would go through,
It's
I
circular.
assume it would go, because we wouldn't be going to the money and collecting it. I think it's all part of the tax structure and gets turned over when they pay out their taxes.
Right.
And then they would distribute to the appropriate parties, is how I envision it, and I could be dead wrong, but I'm.
That could be part of the research about
But I don't know.
how it happens.
I have
It's
to,
possible that hotel tax will come directly to us because we're not sharing with anybody.
I don't know.
Oh, and they would have administrative costs potentially for handling our tax if they don't get anything.
I don't
And then
know.
there'd be a fee.
I really don't know.
But they're really, I mean, all of the other taxes get split up somewhere.
Mhm.
I think, to me, it goes to a deposit.
Yeah, I hear where you're going with that.
Would not get split.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's part of the research then, really the process of this. What would that look like? I think that would be helpful, and even the percentage of what, tax we're getting.
Can we focus on the research part rather than drafting of resolutions then at this stage?
You want to pull back and get some more information before we,
I think that would be prudent, given our
I'm fine
discussion
with
here. I feel like I'm not quite ready to jump to ordinances.
Okay, I mean, we still have the motion, but, I'm fine with that either way. I mean, either way, I think.
We still
so we'll
have,
turn down, we have to
we
vote.
still have to vote.
Yeah, because, I know, I was just keeping it with the board, so you're good. Yes,
I just want to show you history. There was a point where the county proposed removing that tax, and all of the municipalities, the school districts, the towns, and the villages threatened to sue the county. They backed out and they stopped. We asked, while I was mayor, several times to explain the formula. And I don't know if you recall the last time we did that, but the answer was still very convoluted. It's based partially on population, partially on the sales, partially on the total sales, but they could not give us a crystal clear.
so partially on a dartboard. Okay,
Exactly.
right.
The other thing is, I think the hotel tax, I believe it funds the visitors bureau that the county runs.
Yeah, I think so too, or a large portion certainly.
Yeah, we have the ordinance up here.
Yeah.
It's in the board.
A large portion does. Okay, we have a motion and a
Okay.
second.
Trustee Lanfair?
No.
Trustee Lickett?
No.
Trustee Marshall?
No.
Trustee Coe?
I'm going to say no. I respect going and doing some research. We'll do some research and then we'll bring it back.
I agree with that, yeah, so no, let's get some research and bring it back to the board.
Motion fails.
Okay. Oh, that sounds so sad.
I know.
I never get to say it, so I
I know.
can.
Reconsidered, motion was reconsidered.
Yeah, reconsider,
I feel
that's,
like
there we
Dave
go.
now.
Yeah.
I know,
I
like
feel like
last,
Dave.
like last week,
Yeah, that was a tough, I
I didn't
know.
even get to a vote.
I know, that was
Sleep
tough.
last week?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
fine, it was fine.
Okay.
I got my hair done, went home, everything.
Moving on, update on the Bank of America parking lot. Let's see, this is just an update, it's still in process. We did send a copy of the lease agreement that we have with the town, with Breathe, the big lot, to the fire district. They reviewed it, they thought it was a good lease, however, they sort of said, how about if we have an intermunicipal agreement? And the person I spoke with, it was Jared, thought that, oh, I think we have one. Wouldn't we just, invoke that in our municipal agreement? None of us think that we even have an agreement that includes the fire district per se. We certainly have one with the town. We've always had one with the town. Nonetheless, Jeff, do you want to weigh in on this and just in terms of what this would look like and some thoughts just from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we have an intermunicipal agreement with the fire department.
Yeah.
If we do, I'd like to see it before
Yeah.
figuring out how that would, this situation, that would apply to this situation. It's not such a big deal for us to try to do that under an intermunicipal agreement, because I think our Breathe deal is that we plow, right?
No.
What do we do?
We,
Oh, we don't plow.
yeah, Zach, do you want to just speak to that, because you,
Mowing grass, taking care of the fence, and sweeping and leaves.
Who does the pavement?
Devin Patel. Pavement, striping.
Still, we've got a fence in the deal, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if we're going to repair fences, we ought to have a little time frame to work with, and that means a lease.
okay, no, it's good, yeah.
So I think a lease makes a little
Yeah.
more sense.
And so, with that in mind, that when, Jared said that, I thought, why don't I reach out also to Bill Smith, because the town obviously would be involved. He's aware of this, and he thought, oh, yeah, we'll just show them the lease that we all had in effect with Breathe. But I'll circle back certainly with Bill on this.
I would like to see the intermunicipal
And
agreement,
exactly,
to see if it might help us, but,
yeah,
I
I'm
don't think.
not thinking it will. Okay, so we'll see what does or does not exist with this
Yeah.
municipal agreement.
My general perspective would be to agree with Jeff on this.
Yeah.
The lease makes more sense for the
Okay.
village.
Yeah.
We can make that work.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go too. Any other thoughts from the board, or, we're working through it, so by the next meeting, I'm hoping we'll have some more definitive information for the board.
Did you
Yeah.
want me to, I'm unaware of any municipal agreement, or would you like me to?
Let's do a
Laura
search,
on
just in case.
Because I'm not sure what we would have had an agreement regarding.
I don't know why we would have one in that way.
To cut out our legwork, why don't you ask Jared for a copy of the.
Yeah, just say, next, send us a copy. Yeah, I'm liking that, thank you. Yeah, Lily.
Would we be entering into, requesting an intermunicipal agreement with the fire department or the fire district?
District.
District.
Yeah, and in my mind, I don't see why we would have one.
I don't think so either.
There wouldn't have been
No, probably not.
If there is one, take it in the sense.
Okay.
All right, that's it. We'll have-
That'll be the next call, back to the fire district. Okay. Next up,
Mayor, did we want to do our 5:30 special permit? 'Cause I think-
oh, they're here?
I think so.
9 South, and over here.
Yeah, 9 South Main Street?
Can you guys hear? So 9 South Main,
I think it's so.
not here?
No.
9 South Main Street.
The Blue Horn?
Blue Horn.
Yeah, sorry.
That's your address, just in case you want
I
to
know,
know.
I know,
Come on
I gotta
up.
check it too.
Here, you can grab a chair or whatever. Here, we've got a chair right here.
Bring them right on up.
Come on up.
Hello, I've never, I'm here representing Brad Sluman.
And you are, please?
Stuart Levy.
Stuart Levy?
Yeah,
Okay.
Brad has COVID. tonight.
Oh,
and,
no.
He thought the last thing he should do is.
Yeah, stay home.
Hope he gets well soon. Oh, dear. So in what capacity are you?
Yeah, so this little history of me, I'm the broker for the business, but I worked with Brad for many years. I actually opened up the Pittsburgh Pub as a general manager. I've also brokered Fatouche. I think everybody's happy with the Mediterranean restaurant that is in there now. So I handle that, and I'm actually the broker for this particular transition. The guys that are in there now are running it as a cafe bar, and Brad has all intentions of keeping the same concept. Actually, he's looking to add more food, a little bit more of a cafe with bar. Intending to keep the same hours of business and nothing special.
Will the name change?
The name will change, yeah. I don't have the name yet. That was a good question. So I don't know what the new name of the location is going to be yet.
But everything's the same, pretty much?
Yeah, there's no intentions of doing any remodeling or anything. I mean, maybe changing the color and putting in some new furniture, but basically the same concept and idea. Something that will fit the core of the town, really, is what the idea is.
And so really, the motion would be to set the public hearing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and at that time, if we could bring you a menu, if that, obviously of what we're.
Any additional information is always helpful.
100%, right.
Yeah.
I figured.
And if you could get the information to our village clerk prior to the meeting.
Sure. So that would consist of like the name.
Just anything you can add in is always helpful.
Yeah, I was told today was an informal or information meeting, and this is helpful that I have.
Okay.
Perfect.
Details about the restaurant or the kitchen part of this and how that's going to run.
So there is a small kitchen in there now that's downstairs. There's no Ansel system or anything like that, so obviously there's no what? There's no Ansel system or
a fire suppression system.
There's no fire suppression. So the menu would consist of paninis, sandwiches,
They would be prepared on site?
They would be prepared on site, correct. He has a sous chef that will be able to prepare everything. There is a kitchen prep area downstairs with a sink and a cutting table that the health board has approved. Basically, of the operation that they have now is what, it'll be the same thing. But he is going to add more menu items where you can be open for lunch and be able to serve dinner in there too.
Steve, did you have any questions about this? Okay.
No, it's a similar, pretty much same operation that was approved previously, so.
So I just want to say, out of courtesy, so you kind of know the process, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to set a public hearing so that the community can come in and voice any concerns, and then after that, then we will.
Perfect.
I would ask you to look at the definition of restaurant in our village code. It will be 210. $41.1, and then it's alphabetical. Okay, so restaurant won't be in ours.
Yeah, we've done our research.
Yeah, so just, I think the board will be interested to know how the operation that you're planning fits into the definition of restaurant.
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And I believe you'll need a floor plan as well.
Yeah, and you would work with Steve on that, give Steve the floor?
Oh, 100%, I'll get it. I did talk to you. Okay, yeah, 100%, I'm working on that right now to get floor plan. I think it was requested already, and it was my job to get that done, okay.
And we don't want this at the hearing, this has to be put in a packet well before the hearing.
Right, okay.
The turnaround, we would want it as soon as you can do it.
So prior to the public hearing, you want to make sure you have everything there?
Yeah, because we need everything to make sure it meets the criteria and make the decision.
Not a problem.
So that floor plan should also include the basement space for the food prep is happening.
Got it.
Yeah, for the entire operation, yeah.
That won't be a problem.
Dorothea, when would the public hearing be?
Public hearing could be next meeting, 22nd at 6 PM. I would like everything, well, Steve will tell you when he wants. I need it for your purposes. I would like it by the 17th.
A week beforehand, at least.
At least for you to get.
That would be the floor plan and everything.
Yeah.
So it'd be a little bit earlier than
I
that.
talk to Steve, but I think he's going to want it by the 15th.
Okay.
To make sure.
Yeah, let's
he
say
has-
the 15th. That way, if there's any additional information or questions.
Because I leave the 17th, so that's.
Oh, that's right.
We
You're
won't,
not going
we
then.
won't waste any time.
I know, depends on Milton.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yikes.
24 hours they'll be in and out. How much damage it does, I just talked to my buddy in Sarasota, and he's like,
It's a biggie.
it's big, yeah.
It is.
So I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for 9 South Main Street for a bar restaurant for October 22nd at 6 PM. Do I have a second?
I have a second from you, did I have a second from you?
You can second it, that's fine.
Okay. I didn't want to.
It's your turn.
A second.
Okay. All right, trustee Lanfair,
Aye.
trustee Lightkit,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank
See you
you all,
then.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have all that, thank you for your time. I have never been here before, so this is.
Oh, well, welcome. Glad you stopped in.
Stop by.
I was actually, you go to some of these hearings and it's very entertaining. A lot of information.
We'll do our best.
Good job with your other restaurants. I
All right,
was on a
thank you.
Fatouche last night.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought, that's where I came in with it.
It was a good lead. Okay.
Steve, this continues on the same topic, if I may, and you may not know this, maybe Jeff, you're the better person to ask, but as I look at our definition of a restaurant, and I look at the New York State Liquor Authority's definition of a restaurant, are we more strict or less strict than the Liquor Authority? And
I think we are more strict.
I think we're more
Can you say
strict.
that? I will.
And the only reason I ask is, I'm on the New York State Liquor Authority now, and it says what distinguishes a restaurant license from a tavern license. But this isn't our jurisdiction, so this is more for public knowledge. Primarily two things. First, the type of food a restaurant must serve is in excess of what a tavern must serve. A restaurant must serve full entree-style meals, while a tavern must only serve soups, sandwiches, and the like. Second, a restaurant may, with the approval of the authority, share interior access to another building. A tavern must not be directly accessible. So one of the questions that I have, and this has to do with when the liquor authority sends us a note and says, hey, is this okay? It's not on us to determine what a full entree style meal is. That's on them. We just simply tell them what we've approved or denied. Is that correct?
It's not on us, but it would behoove us to say that it's, if it doesn't fit within our district, that it doesn't comply with zoning, they should know that.
But if it does comply with ours, so this goes back to what you had referenced, a restaurant for us is something that's regularly in a bona fide manner used to be serving meals for compensation, suitable for conveniences for cooking and assortment, the kitchen of which must be in charge of a chef, blah, blah, blah. But when I look through our definition of the restaurant, we don't get incredibly specific about the extensiveness of the menu. We're not asking for full entree style meals, for example.
I would say that we are asking for that.
Right, so we are asking for this. We basically grant approval.
Sorry.
And then we say whether or not it's in conformity with our restaurant.
Right,
Code.
I would say that definition in our code is at least requiring full entrees.
At least.
The
Okay.
way it reads.
Yeah.
Containing conveniences for cooking and assortment of food which may be required for ordinary meals, the kitchen of which must at all times be in charge of a chef. Okay, so it's that language there required for ordinary meals.
And we have cooking in there.
And yeah, under a chef.
And you
Cooking, but what's
mentioned a
cooking?
sous chef
Right,
was there.
Preparing and cooking.
Right.
Cooking to me is using a fire.
Right. Now, there is a section at the end that has a little bit to do with ready-to-consume and rapidly prepared stuff at a counter, where we kick out like delicatessens, pizzerias, sandwich shops. And this goes back to my comment last meeting, which is, the degree by which we might hope there's opportunities for people to come and enjoy the village and have a bite to eat that is a variety in nature, do we have a definition here that is stricter than it needs to be? I mean, I would personally like a quick in and out sandwich shop, delicatessen type style, right? I think it'd be great, especially in some of the very small locations that we have. So I just don't want to let this whole conversation and the challenges related to all this fall on deaf ears.
I think you raise an interesting point, because in my mind, and also having worked in the business, a meal is a meal.
Yeah, just add it.
A meal is a meal.
Tweak the language a bit to allow.
Some people have
for-
breakfast for dinner, you know what I mean? It's like a meal's a meal.
Because that's always evolving, what we consider, a meal. Could be, it's much lighter now, it could be just sushi, there's
Yeah.
Since that ordinance was crafted, I think we need a little adjustment to the language regarding light fare, let's call it light fare, and that's permissible as a restaurant. It's food.
Yeah, this is great. And I think too, for example, hint, anybody who wants to put a taco joint in the old way station.
You so want your tacos.
I know.
I know.
Awesome. But the point being is, it's not like it's kind of a quick and easy, it's not a drive-through, but it's a quick and easy in and out.
Yes,
People are, right, and it can activate a space.
And it falls in with
No, I
the
think you
definition
made
of
the point,
restaurant.
I think it's an interesting point that,
Gotcha.
and it may end up in maybe giving some direction, some more research about how would that look. Dorothea, you had,
I have a public comment that popped in after, sorry. Peggy Caraberis, 81 South Main Street, so she has her hand raised. Is this a change in ownership? What food is being served now? Why would this be different than what's being run now?
it's a change in ownership.
And they're serving more
Yeah.
food than what's being served now.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a similar type of operation now. They're not doing anything major per se. They're expanding the menu, I guess, is
Expanding
really
the
what
menu,
they're
put more food
doing.
out.
Yeah, so that would answer.
So then how do we move forward with maybe taking a look at the ordinance and just lightening up on the restrictions of what constitutes a meal?
I think we just put it on an agenda and dedicate a little time to it. And we can probably do it here, I mean, we can think about it offline, and if two people want to gather
And just come up with the change in the language?
Yeah, and I was thinking we may want to even, we can even do this internally.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, because it really would be a survey perhaps of other definitions that are out there. We may want to ask our attorney just to weigh in on some of that, because there's other municipalities that obviously define this too.
let's figure out what we
There's no
want.
plagiarism in government.
Yeah, I would say let's figure out how relaxed we might want to get with it first, and then maybe ask Jeff to find code that fits, or do you want to do it the
I
other way?
would think, let's do the research and see what's out there in different types of definitions, and then we pick the flavor.
So who's
Maybe.
going to do the research?
I think we can do that internally and just have a search done. I think, it's more of an internal, and then just bring it back. Jeff, did you want to add in?
I'd be tempted to do it the other way. I think the board needs to decide what you want. Is there a distinction between a restaurant and a tavern? What is that distinction?
Yeah, it feeds into other
What is
legislation.
that distinction going to be?
It impacts other legislation potentially,
So-
our action. You're absolutely right.
You're right.
Look
I
at
think
that.
this board needs to decide what it wants coming out the other end
Yeah,
of this process.
because
Which
we
is
have
kind of a
restaurants and
Big
taverns.
discussion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd be happy to have it on the next agenda. I think it's a good discussion.
Yeah.
There's some interesting stuff in the code here where it sounds like we want to allow for lighter fare, but we don't necessarily want like full carry-out restaurants. And there's one section of our code that specifically prohibits delicatessens and lumps them in with the carry-out type of establishment. So I think that we need to kind of cut the line there. It sounds like based on what some of this board is saying, we can have a discussion in the next meeting, and I think figure out something.
Let's make that an agenda item, and, we can all be prepared to speak about it.
A big part of this definition, restaurant in our code, was intended to differentiate between a tavern,
Yeah.
bar, and then a restaurant use.
And
So that the bar tavern would tie into the overlay districts for bars and taverns. And that's the only place that we would have a bar and tavern that wouldn't be backed into in some other place.
No, but I think it's
So
part of a
that's-
larger
Yeah.
discussion,
That's what it is.
absolutely.
I think to
It's a
expand the
large-
definition of
large
restaurant.
discussion.
Yeah, Yeah.
about
That's a really good point, thank
how
you.
you have to get, how you want to get to where you want to get to.
Yep, yeah.
So one of the other things that might be incorporated here is that idea of, do we want this to be zone-wide or an overlay type district, where you could potentially relax the definition of a restaurant only in certain areas, right? You could also, to the point that we had that discussion on, taverns, you could have an overlay district that has different requirements or hours of operation that are permissible, with more flexibility to both taverns or restaurants. Right, so I think let's bring it back and just keep talking through this.
Yes, to me, I think the easiest path forward, the quickest path forward is to just adjust the definition of restaurant, and then it's much cleaner. We start talking about changing code and zoning, and we're talking about
And
public
it's
hearings.
so long, so
Yeah.
let's try to get the
We do baby
restaurant.
steps and keep
Yeah.
going.
And it's much
Right.
more far-reaching. I think this is just such
It's a big one, but we need the discussion, I think. I
Yes,
agree with that.
exactly. Because there's so many, restaurants that I consider restaurant pop up in my head as we're sitting here that would not fit that definition of restaurant. I think of it as a restaurant.
The problem you're going to get into is if you relax it too much, you're going to be into the bar tavern discussion before you know it.
Yes, I just think we need some discussion around restaurant
Because
definition.
there will be no way to distinguish between a bar, tavern, and a restaurant.
Is that okay?
That's up to you, that's up to the board.
Yeah, I think that's.
Tavern's a separate definition in that part of the zoning
Yeah.
code, so we can look at both of them side by
Yeah.
side. and see
Mhm.
the
That's what I'm
lines.
thinking too.
So here's my thought. I think Blue Horn, if they want to operate the way they, I guess, have been operating, with a little less fair than what might have been generally thought to be the case, I have no problem with that. So if we end up creating a restaurant definition that essentially becomes a hours of operation where they need, it's not on us, but it's on the liquor authority with regards to the determination of a restaurant. But we have to have enough separation that we can say there's two different entities, right? Internally. There's got to be enough.
I mean,
Okay.
no, you don't have to do anything. This is, you do what you think is right in terms of the village, in terms of the use that you want. I can only tell you that this code came from a place where there was going to be a very clear distinction between restaurants and bars.
Yep, understood, and I think
And
what I'm
that's-
hearing is that we want to kind of just take a look at
Right.
maybe tweaking that a bit and what that means and looking at those.
So whether or not you want to keep that clear distinction, I think is.
Yeah, yep, understood, yeah.
One of
And
the
then,
issues.
and then you had somebody,
Somebody wants to speak.
oh, sure.
Peggy, you're able to speak? Peggy, you're capable, you're allowed to speak? Oh, she took her hand down, changed her mind.
Oh, okay, maybe. Answered all the questions, okay.
Okay.
All righty. Okay, so it's, oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to kind of add something in regard to this discussion. It might be important to pull up the minutes from the approval for the Blue Horn, because the approval was based on the same operation, and then, I mean, they're saying they're going to extend their menu a little more, but,
Okay.
I think it would be important to present that to the board so they can see what.
Yeah, why don't we have, Laura pull that, and then we can send that out to the board.
Although I would say that notwithstanding whatever those minutes indicate, this request for a special permit is under our current code.
Yes,
Really needs to comply with the current code.
yeah, understood. But I think just as,
Unless there is some part of the minutes which indicate why that use is a restaurant.
okay. Noted. Okay, so we have a discussion item then for,
At the time, according to the minutes that were included in coincidentally
Oh, no kidding.
is in
It
there.
happens to be.
And what they refer to here is a lounge. Their request was to open a lounge. We don't have any language in our code regarding lounge. So
Oh, interesting.
they were talking about the liquor authority application.
It
And
is a lounge.
their approval, and I think it was in the other minutes, set of minutes, was for a restaurant. And that was
What's the
clearly
date
fine.
on the-
I'm sorry?
Is there a date on that?
Yeah, the date of the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It
2018,
was 18.
October, I think,
It's in the pack.
October 11th, 2018. They talks about that, I might have the October date wrong, but it was October 2018.
Okay, great.
I'd like to see it go.
Yeah, we'll forward
Funny
everything
how
to
we
you too.
define restaurants and taverns, and then get a bunch of applications for lounges.
So we
Yeah.
better get rid of the lounge.
Whatever the heck.
You can classify it however you want.
Oh, my goodness, it just keeps going. Okay, we're set here? All right. Next up, the proposed cell tower installation at the Pittsburgh Public Library. What was included in the packet for everybody was what the town had received. They're the property owner. It was a discussion from, I believe, Verizon that was interested in putting a cell tower on their property. I did speak with Supervisor Smith, and he said they have not received anything sort of definitive. It was the first time the town board had seen it. And we both came to the same understanding that it will go before our Historic Preservation Board as this moves forward.
Okay.
And I kind of said, I'd like our board even, there's three options there. I have my thoughts, and I think some of the thoughts were made clear also at the town level about what perhaps would look best.
Technically, if they use the pole on a site plan,
Pardon me?
if they use the pole,
That's right, then we need the site plan
Should
to
be
go.
the site
Yeah,
plan.
exactly. But I think he mentioned HPV because I think they're not going to do the pool, potentially, based on some feedback that they received, yeah.
I have questions that cannot be answered.
Welcome to my world.
The questions are from the cell tower company, the cell company. Do they base their location choices on height? Are they looking, see, this is what I'm saying, nobody's going to answer it, these are maybe rhetorical questions. How do they base their decisions about where they place these towers? If that is the criteria, then it seems that the village would have the only opportunity for height, if you will, in the entire town on existing. I understand they can make fake trees and do other things, but they typically use church steeples and other existing physical structures to place their towers as the least expensive option for them. If that's the case, then are we looking at a scenario where in the village, and I don't understand anything about technology or how they're moving forward in the improvements, could we anticipate that we become the epicenter of all the cell towers for the area? Are they going to spread the opportunity?
In what way you say we become epicenter? What is?
Epicenter for all the cell towers, now this company wants one, and here's a new company.
Yeah, Justin.
Because the trend in cellular is that
That's what I don't know.
the wavelength is higher, so they're much more localized.
Okay.
So they're not as long distance anymore, so I don't think that there's going to be a concentration here just because we have buildings.
Okay, see, I don't know how it works, so
We're
that's
going to have more
how
small cell type stuff on.
Yeah, there's more of a
different
distributed
poles and
network
stuff,
and
but-
micro coverage, is what
Okay.
they call it. Yeah.
Okay. See, I didn't know
So-
that.
so I have a-
That's what I was anticipating, would we be then looking at more down the road?
That is something, there's a lot of legislation surrounding historic preservation and accounting for small cell and that kind of stuff that I don't think we have a lot of that in place right now, so we could look at that. But it's a little bit different than the concentration that you're talking about because of height of buildings.
Yeah.
I have a question, one of them, because I'm on the bandwagon of revenue streams. It looks like Verizon's offering $12,000 per year for Monopole and $14,400 for library installation. Does all that money go to the town?
Yes.
And do we get any?
They're the property owner.
I know, but it's in our village.
It goes to the
And
property
it
owner.
affects the
In other
village
words, I can tell you that,
viewscape.
I understand, but I can tell you a cell tower was put in, down at the church on the corner of Sunset,
Mhm.
and the church gets the money. The
Yes.
town doesn't get it.
Okay.
It's it goes to the property owner, yeah.
Even though it affects our viewscape, the village's viewscape, it's still going to go to the property owner. Okay, again, this is a question, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but the cell tower on the grain tower, did that go through our boards? Do we remember?
Yeah.
It did.
And the
Okay.
iterations and the changes.
And my understanding was Verizon looked at that, it's full, essentially, that it's at capacity.
Yeah,
So that's why they're looking.
building owner gets the benefit.
Yeah, but I'm saying that what is currently on top of
Yeah.
the silo, it's all at capacity. Verizon couldn't add to it.
No, there's already 4, I think, out there.
Yeah. No room at the end.
So just a note on this, in addition to the Historic Preservation Board review, I believe it needs to go to my major site plan review. So in the Village Code 210-34-3, major site plan review, major actions, major site plan review shall be required for siting, erecting, or relocating telecommunication towers or equipment. And you go into the equipment, and it includes affixing to things like community structures or the like. So in addition to HPV, this should go to planning.
Probably should go to plan. Yeah. Yeah, it did, you're right, that's right, I just remembered that,
So-
right, so
I think.
Bill was thinking HPV, I think, because of the nature of what the conversation was the other night, I think that's where it is going.
But it should be both, and.
Should go through all the proper channels.
Do we need to make a motion? I know in the past, we've done the intermunicipal review 1 through 8 and said.
Why don't we direct that question to our attorney?
Well, I mean, this is not that same issue. This is not a municipality coming into our municipality.
Okay.
Well, it is in the sense that the town owns the building and will allow for the attachment. But really, it's a municipal, it's a utility, a public utility coming in. So our oversight is governed by a whole set of different regulations than zoning or any of the kind. So at this point, no, we don't have anything to act on at this point.
Okay, so we just wait for the application and then Steve directs it to where it goes.
Right.
Okay, but as of now, our understanding is it would be both planning board and HPV.
Yes.
Yeah, just look, Bill said HPV, but he also said it should go through the proper channels, and they've made that clear to the potential, applicant for that,
Okay.
so.
Great, thank you.
Yep, so that's the update. Okay. Item number 5, authorization to engage Bureau for the Village Hall improvements.
Okay. Well, we've talked about it.
Hang on one second, I'm sorry, hit the pause button. Happy birthday to your wife.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
You don't need me for this? Anybody need me for member items or anything?
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't want to,
I better call, make sure she wants me home this.
She might be hurrying.
just having the kegger, yeah.
One day home.
Our birthday gift is you here.
Right.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Hey,
Thanks, Jeff.
For your
Everybody
help,
have a great night.
yeah. I hope you have a great evening.
As much as I'd like to go, did you want to tackle 1, 2? Or you want to?
Oh, let's swing back up to that real quick, yeah. Just the because streetlight conversion. And I want to bring Zach in on this, because you all received some of the information and some of the calculations that were done. It's in your packet. And I know there's a little bit of history going back. Zach, if you could speak to that with the conversions.
Yeah, I believe this was our first approach with the last administration. Consideration of buying the.
You know what?
Yeah, can you come a little closer, just so everybody can hear? Thanks.
Yeah, this had come up before the last administration, and consideration of buying the streetlights. And I believe RG&E is kind of promoting this to other municipalities, the list of municipalities grows every year. So converting everything ahead of time would relieve us of the burden of doing it ourselves if we were to ever buy
And we've already started the process of the LED conversion?
Yes,
Okay.
on the village-owned streetlights, we're at like 85% converted at this point.
Okay, so this is, now we're looking at the remainder
Yep,
that is RG&E.
yes.
Okay. And so that would complete the conversion, we would get the points then for the climate smart community, just so everybody here kind of understands, that it's essentially was identified, as they said, the lower hanging fruit, that we were already converting everything, and this would be sort of the last bit to do. And so I think there were some numbers that RG&E had provided in terms of this annualized savings. What was it, 3,000 something?
I have the estimated annual supply savings is 18.5.
Oh, 18.5.
18.5.
Okay. I looked at the wrong sheet.
Unexpired light cost is 14.
Yeah.
And then savings per year is about, that's where you got it.
That's where I got the savings.
3,832.
Yeah, so, it has us in the right direction, and it's a sustainable project. But do you want to just talk again? I know you started about buying the lights, which is, if you could speak to that, because that's just another step potentially as well. Not this one, but another step.
I believe RG&E is trying to offload the responsibility of the streetlights that they own to the municipalities that they are in. And just can only speak to the amount of municipalities that I see on the outage lists that are responsible for maintenance of the streetlights is growing every month or so that we report. There's another municipality that is added to that list. But I think RG&E.
Of the RG&E maintenance list?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, when you go onto RG&E's website to report streetlight outages that RG&E is responsible for, they have a list of the lights that are owned by different municipalities. So if those outages are being reported by residents, and they reside in one of those municipalities that own the streetlights at that point, then RG&E refers those reports to be submitted to the municipality rather than RG&E. So that
So
list,
what does that mean?
that means that the municipality owns those lights,
Yeah.
and RG&E is just telling whoever is reporting the outage to refer back to them.
And so is it a faster mean time to repair within the municipality?
Depends on the municipality and the contract that they would have set up with the maintenance crew,
Right.
or if they're able to do this stuff in-house, which is a whole other animal for those to consider. But, there were problems a few years ago with the contractors that RG&E was using for doing the repairs and maintenance to the RG&E owned lights, which took a lot of time for companies to come out and do those repairs. So I think that's what triggered the consideration of buying RG&E's lights at that time. So having the control over those lights and the repairs.
So it's more control over the response time to repair, because I can remember, actually when I first took office, some of the lights, it's sad, because
Yeah, we had banks out for quite a while.
for some of them, almost a year.
Yeah.
So this would collapse anyway, in
Sure.
some fashion, the mean time to repair.
Yeah.
Is what we're hearing on that. And then there's something, but right now we're just looking at the conversion
to LED, which, the village would want to do regardless.
The remainder, yeah.
Yeah. So having RG&E do those conversions, ahead of any purchase, if that were to
If we
happen,
were, yeah.
would save the village on a lot of hassle.
But either way, there's a cost savings to us because now it's all LED.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And
there's an upside,
The
okay.
amount of savings on a yearly basis cover the cost of conversion in 5 years, I think.
Or less, depending on how rates go up or not.
Depending on
It's
rates
never going to
go
go
up.
down.
Yeah. And then it also gives the points towards the Climate Smart Communities program.
Yeah, and I understand the points, depending on where we are, it actually could kind of be the wash, depending on what it costs for us to do the remainder of the conversion. Yeah. Yeah, just 1 second, you're still with the board. Any other questions?
This would be our first Climate Smart Community point grab, right?
Not our first.
Steve, do you want to speak to that? Because you've been,
No, we've already received $20,000 in grant money
Mhm.
based on some other things we've done. Adopting the solar permit, getting training. We've gotten points, and this will bring us close to the next level. We will still have to accomplish
a couple more things.
one more or two
Yeah,
more things
yeah.
to get to that next level, but the next level jumps us up to 40 to 50K.
Yeah, and then what we've already received, the 20,000, has that been spent on anything?
No.
Okay, so we could use some of that towards a sustainable conversion of the LED,
Correct.
back to
That's what it's
LEDs.
meant for,
That's where I'm going.
yeah.
So, in other words, it reinforces the idea that we're, again, reinvesting in a sustainable project and doing something, that gets us more points as well, so.
What was the name of the grant that we were awarded?
Those are NYSERDA grants.
Yeah, it's a whole program through NYSERDA for
Right.
municipalities.
Again, this is just me trying to figure things out offline, coming back to these discussions. When I go to the New York State Climate Smart website and pull up our profile as a participating community, and I look at the town, for example, and I look in their profile, and they've got 124 approved action points, and their current certification is bronze. And I go then to the Pittsford Village profile, and it is, we're registered, but there's no points or anything
Oh,
there.
no, all right, we're talking the wrong thing. Climate Smart is the.
You're right.
Clean energy.
This is clean energy.
Is the one that got us the money.
Yeah, you're right, the
We
20,
haven't fully committed to the climate smart.
It's confusing, there's two
It is.
different.
This is clean energy
entities.
versus climate.
it's a completely different program that gave us the money.
Yeah, you have to look
Yeah,
this up
sorry,
on
Dave.
a clean energy community to see where our point total is.
Yeah,
So one of the challenges here in this discussion is the different ways that we get these grants or not, and where they come from and don't. And I believe NYSERDA is more likely to give you grants if you're a climate smart community and participating, maybe not.
Well, what I thought, to kind of give a reference, the Climate Smart Community, the first action item was to create that committee.
mhm.
And that gets you bronze status in the Climate Smart Community, which then gives you a ton of points in the Clean Energy Community. Clean Energy Community is where we got the grants from.
Okay, so NYSERDA,
Is it clean energy?
One program essentially
Pardon?
reinforces the other,
right.
So
that's how
NYSERDA
I
is a
look
clean
at it.
energy community versus the climate smart community?
We're in both. We're
Right,
registered.
right. Right. NYSERDA
NYSERDA has implemented all of these programs, it's all under the NYSERDA umbrella.
Umbrella, okay.
It's their pot of money, and they have two programs that we have adopted in the municipality.
And one's called
And
climate.
each program essentially reinforces the other. When we do a project in one program, we can use that project to get points in another part of the program and in the second program and vice versa.
Okay,
It's so
Just to
confusing. but-
clarify vocabulary, one of them is called the climate smart community, and what's the other one called?
Clean Energy Community.
Got
The problem is, or not a problem, but the rub, I guess the word, we can't get any Climate Smart Community points because we're not a bronze registered community. We are
So if we
registered
set up the
as
committee,
in, but
yeah.
until you become bronze, you can't get points from the other things we've already done in the Climate Smart Community program.
It's all based on setting up that committee.
Yes.
And where are we with that?
That's the next follow-up. Where are we? Does anybody know?
We have the letter.
I think it was,
Was it in the packet?
no.
Oh.
No.
Okay, let's bring it right back then to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do
We
that.
talked about joining the town, or trying to do something joint with the town, but there was an issue.
We're going to address that in the next meeting.
Yeah.
We're going to put that right on the agenda and bring everything back to the board for discussion. Yeah. So anyway, what we're looking at now is whether or not we want to approve the conversion.
So
Yeah.
what I'm looking at here are 3 pages in the packet. For some
Mhm.
reason, they're all marked confidential, even though I don't know how the counts of different watts for different lumens is confidential at all. But there's nothing about any kind of proposal, what we're spending, where the money's coming from, what energy program this is from. And I guess, from looking at these pages about lumen and watt breakdowns and savings, like I have no idea what we're talking about as far as positions that would impact the board.
What would you like to see so we can bring it back to the next meeting?
All I want to see
so
is.
because I want to make it clear for everybody.
What's the proposal? I mean, how much money is it? What are we going to do?
You saw the paperwork?
There's a price in there for whatever.
Yeah, it includes the pricing.
It's 14,000 something, it's in the package.
It's in the packet.
And I think the money from the clean energy points that we received is what will fund the purchase of the.
That was part of this discussion.
There's no village money being used, it's all out of grant money.
Yeah.
And the grant is not a matching grant.
Okay.
And the grant, the only direction when we receive the grant is that it be reinvested back into our community for additional sustainable projects. That's really the only restriction. And, in other words, I think really what these programs are geared to are a positive outcome for municipalities to make changes that, protect the community and the planet, really.
We're basically using free money.
Right, and no cost.
No, I think we just covered that, yeah, so.
So the unexpired life cost, I don't know what that means exactly, but that's the 14,000, and that's money that we have to pay and then we're reimbursed from the grant, is that correct?
We have the grant
We
money.
already have the money.
We already have the money, so it just comes straight out of that.
It would be,
That's in the.
That was awarded to us for the conversion of the village lights.
Okay.
And now what we're doing, because we knew we could convert the village lights,
Yeah.
and so the remainder of the lights that are still owned by RG&E, and once we show that we have literally paid into and converted all of the lights, yay, we get the points and we get more money. So,
for me, what I would need if the board wants to move forward, I need a motion to take the grant money received by the NYSERDA and apply it to the expense of the conversion.
Of village-owned lights.
These are
of RG&E.
lights.
Are they
RG&E lights.
RG&E?
Yeah, only the RG&E lights are left to convert.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we're seeing the numbers provided by RG&E.
Is there any visible difference once they're converted? You can't tell the
You've already-
difference.
Visible as in like the color of the light?
Color of light,
Lights and how
pole.
they appear in the.
I mean, it's a different lamp head, so you will see a difference in the physical light itself. The light that it emits, yeah, slightly.
Slightly. We already have, how many lights are converted right now?
Well, the village lights, I think out of 75 or 77, there are like 65.
Yeah, almost all of them.
And
We've already
the color
seen
temperature is
pink.
pretty close to the metal halide that was existing in them before.
Mhm.
The overhead Cobra lights you might see that are more like a pinkish hue right now, might be more of a whitish light. I'm not sure, and I didn't look too hard at what was provided by RG&E for the conversions. If you can pick the color temperature that you prefer for the lights, the conversions.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you wanted more of a softer,
We want
versus
warm
brighter
light. We
white
want,
color,
yeah,
you
be warm.
might be able to pick that.
Yeah, I believe so,
Yeah.
actually. I'm sorry, okay, you were just moving. Yeah.
Okay. Bob Corby, 7 Washington Avenue. There's 2 lights that are out, by the way, Zach, the RG&E Acorns on the south side of State Street, the first 2 east of the bridge are out. A couple of things. What we had to deal with RG&E when we converted from mercury vapor to metal halide, and they tried to increase the lumen output. You want to be very careful of that because the test ones were too bright. So you want to make sure that the lumen for the new lights is the same. I would also recommend going with a warm type of light if you have a choice.
As discussed, yep.
And this will affect the acorns, the mast arms, and not the out lights will remain the same.
Thank you. Yep, thanks for validating our discussion. Okay, yes, Dorothea.
There was a question from Peggy Carabaris, 81 South Main. Can the public see the details in the packet, please? I thought initially, and I responded to Peggy, it should be in the packet online. It wasn't.
Oh.
And I don't know if that was due to the stamp of the
Oh, I
confidentiality
bet-
from RG&E.
I think she left it out because it was stamped confidential.
So I'm not sure if that is a publicly available document.
We would have to clear it, I think, with RG&E. That's the way we receive the documents.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable
And
just.
it was really confusing to me too. I mean, unexpired life cost, maybe somebody else understands that that's the cost of the system, but I had no idea what I was looking
I
at.
can explain that.
Okay.
Yeah, you hear
The
this?
unexpired life is the value that RG&E assesses as, given how old the fixture is, that's what they assess as the value of the remaining life of that fixture.
Okay, great, so that's why.
They set the cost if you decide to buy the lights.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
the longer
that's,
that you let the lights sit,
So they don't
as
get
are,
forbidding
the cheaper the
situations.
conversion will be in the end.
okay, I just.
Yeah, say that again, just so everybody hears that, because,
The longer that
Yeah.
the light exists as they are, the cheaper the conversion will be in the end.
yeah,
Gotcha,
So every year, that number will probably. be-
based on their depreciation.
interesting, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
All right, so I have another question. This is the coordination between NYSERDA and Climate Smart. Steve, this is probably for you. So the converting of streetlights is a Climate Smart Community Point award, right? You can get 4 to 12 points on Climate Smart Community, but we can't get those points until we have a task force and you're registered. So here's the next point. If we move forward and use this money hypothetically, if we approved these lights to go in, because we're doing it before we're an approved Climate Smart Community, would we have then foregone the 4 to 12 points in Climate Smart Community as a result of doing it before we were actually ready to go?
That, you may be correct on that.
Okay,
You may, I'll have to check on that, but if I remember correctly in talking, I think once you become designated, unfortunately, I think anything that was
Done before.
previously, I don't know that you get credit for. I have to check.
right.
No, we were able to plug in stuff we had already done.
To the clean energy.
Oh, that's clean energy, yeah. See, I keep, it's so easy to confuse the
Yeah.
two. Yeah, it was clean energy.
So I,
Why don't we circle back with
Yeah, I
let's
have
see.
to check on that, because for some reason, I seem to remember one of the programs, there was something about
Mhm.
if it was done previous to your certification.
So why don't we do this then? Should we sort of table this for now, get some of this additional information about the timing, sequencing of some of this stuff?
Yeah, bring it back. for-
And do you have any more questions,
I think maybe just, if we can't distribute this for whatever crazy reason, maybe we just make a summary that's
Bullet
more
points or
understandable to
something.
everybody, the cost of this is.
Yeah, maybe just some bullet points, and we can do that. We can just summarize that
I
internally.
already wrote next agenda, so.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is there any way that we can see the actual physical structure of what they look like, the difference
Like a
between,
cut sheet.
yeah, of what the
Yeah.
old one looks like and
Sure,
what the
I
new
can-
one looks like? Is it
Yeah.
that drastically different?
No, not that drastically different, honestly.
No one's going to say, oh my gosh, you converted it's
No,
not going to be
it's
one of
not that.
those.
It doesn't have to house a bulb, so the profile of the fixture itself
same.
has changed because of that. So it's not it's not formed around a bulb, it's basically LED diodes that it's formed around, just like a chipboard.
So is there any way I can get a picture of what it looks like
Sure.
before and after? That would
So
be great.
let's put
Just so-
that on, can we add that to the list?
And that doesn't need to go through
For
preservation
what
at
she
all?
wants? Okay, thank you, the
Yeah,
cut
cut sheet,
sheets.
that would be great.
Okay.
I just wanted.
Yeah, I think that's.
Does that need to go through preservation?
There already are a few that you can look at that are converted here. One of them is on West Jefferson, across from Green Hill.
Across from where?
Green Hill.
Why don't we do that? We can send that out to the board.
Yeah, I'd
Maybe
like to
take a
see it.
picture of it
That'd be great.
and send it out. Let's do that.
All right.
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Picture sent to the board. That's on the next agenda. Okay, so that happened.
I'm sending a link to everybody with NYSERDA's streetlight toolkit,
Oh, a
but also the Climate Smart community information with a link to the primary site, but also the PDF of all the actions. But I would like to say that I'm just going to ask Steve to clarify if we need to get certified in CM.
That direction's been given, so I think we've got that covered, but thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. Now we're at authorization to engage Bureau for Village Hall improvements.
Correct. We talked about this with the commitment letter that we did for DASNY for the improvements for the grant that we were reallocating to for the pillars, the balconette, the concrete, and the heating and cooling. We're at the stage now, DASNY is waiting for final transfer, changing the paperwork and final approvals. So given the amount of time, and these projects are kind of time sensitive, considering we're heading into winter, I'd like to get these bid docs out, and we have reached out to Jen already to get a quote for preparation of those bid docs. And wanting Jennifer Aarons to oversee like the pillars and the other things, I really need her involved in this process. And she typically has been involved when we've had major projects dealing with it.
Yeah, they know the building.
She will be acting as the contractor consultant. If there are any changes to the job, it has to go through her.
She'll go through her.
She'll have the oversight is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Same thing she did with the bathrooms, same thing she consulted with
Because
the
you
fire.
have, you know, she has the expertise to say,
Absolutely.
we have a
Yeah, she'll
job change
oversee the
here.
job.
So
She'll
Dor-
oversee.
Dorothea, you mentioned three
Three.
construction, so it's the pillars?
Pillars, the balconets, the concrete has.
So I didn't know that we were doing balconets. Is that, did I miss that?
Yeah, they're all chipped, they're degraded, they gotta be replaced.
Yeah, they were
Did we
identified.
bring that up before?
Yeah, yes, we have, and they were identified in a report that Bureau provided to the village that was done, what, 23 years ago, 22 years ago.
And the railings.
And the
Yeah,
railings.
I knew the railings and the pillars, I just didn't know about the
Yeah.
balconets.
Yeah, the board, it was discussed in the board.
So those would be replaced.
Can
And
we
the
see a
HVAC.
contract first? Should we see a contract first?
Well, I was hoping she would have one to me by now. I have not, that's why I was double checking my email. But if the board can authorize to a certain dollar amount for me to engage her,
Mhm.
because honestly, she's the appropriate person.
Yeah.
She needs to prepare the bid docs so we can hopefully get them to you, so we can get these out to bid, so we can get this done.
We're up against the weather.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's why you wanted at least no
Yeah,
matter what.
that's why I was trying to move this along, because it's got to go to bid.
Yeah.
Even each project would trigger a bid. So my thought is, put it all into one bid,
And
have
Jen can
Jen
manage that.
oversee, and then we make sure we get everything done. So,
And hopefully we'll see the contract at the next meeting.
well, you would see the bid docs, you would authorize it.
First?
Well, no, I don't have the contract.
Okay.
So let's say if I can get the board to authorize up to $5,000 for the bid docs.
Okay,
for her
to
prepare-
Bureau,
To
to
Barrow.
Jen Aarons.
And if it's more
For
than
the-
that,
to prepare
obviously
the
I'd
bid
have to
documents.
bring it to you.
Okay, but at least it gets it going. And
Right.
if she says, geez, it ended up being, it's going to come in at 5,500, the board.
I'm going to have to bring it back.
She would bring it back.
I'd bring it back to the board.
Okay.
But at least this way I can, if it's going to be under 5,000, I can get the bid docs going so we can hopefully get a bid in front of you so that you can.
Okay, is there a
prove it.
motion? Is there a motion?
Do I have the figure? Are you
5,000?
stating it as 5?
I'm thinking fair is 5,000.
Yeah,
But I have no idea.
well, at least,
It's a starting
it
point.
gets us going.
It doesn't mean that's what you're
going
gonna-
because, again, we're in a race against time.
So
We
up
have
to
pillars
5,000.
that are-
It's what I'm
Yeah.
asking right now for you to prove up to 5,000 for the preparation of the bid docs
Yeah,
for all
okay,
these
yeah.
projects.
I'm so moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair?
Aye.
Trustee Coe?
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev?
Aye.
Mayor Plummer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thanks, everybody. All right, next up, department reports, building inspector. Does anything have anything for Steve? Anybody have anything for Steve? Lots going on. 260 emails.
Lily,
Lily?
Yes, Lily.
Did you have a question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I, as always, appreciate the reports. I have a request. I don't know how this would be handled, whether it would be something that the board would request, whether something the mayor would direct the building inspector to include. But in these reports, I am wondering, given what we have experienced in the last 2 meetings, I would add a request that the building inspector include in his report any code determinations that have occurred. I mean, this is all interesting information, but I think the key to us as a board is knowing what some of these important determinations are, so that we can, if there's a challenge, for instance, we heard one this evening. I'm thinking back over a few times that there have been determinations that we didn't know about as a board. And then several meetings ago, I can't remember who it was, a resident came and said, if we had known that this determination had been made, we might have been able to address it at the time that the determination was made, but we had no way of knowing. So I'm saying, in the interest of transparency, in the interest of information sharing, that the board be provided with, as inclusion in this report, any co-determinations that have been made during the time period that these reports occur.
I wish our attorney was.
I was just gonna say.
I know.
So-
Does this sound complicated?
It does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I'll just speak to Steve on his behalf for a second, and you can chime in, but every single day, you probably have 10 to 15 code determinations. Every single call is a code determination.
Constant.
I mean, I made a call the other day and said, hey, what can I do with a pod on my driveway? It's a code determination. And I made a call to Fairport the other day to talk about a pod in a driveway, and it said, hey, do you mind if I go more than 30 days? He's like, as long as you're like reasonable and appropriate, I'm not gonna come out and get you, right? But it was a code violation. It was a known disagreement with the code, but it was understanding that village affairs happen, not this village, but another. And so I think the biggest challenge is every single day, as a code enforcement officer, he's tasked, everything he does is essentially a code determination. But I agree with you on premise, which is there are things, such as the determination of the definition of residential, right, that had very significant effects on where we are today, in this case, with regards to short-term rentals. But it may also have to do with, a lot line or a setback, or certain things come up where maybe there could be some thoughtfulness on your behalf as to when a code determination is made that is likely to be controversial, right? Where you could bring to our attention things that, hey, I'm doing this is my determination, we may want to talk about.
I'd like to speak to the process, because I think that's something maybe the board isn't kind of in on, because, typically if there's a difficult determination or something's a little iffy, it's always brought to my attention, and it always goes to the attorney. So you are always working with our village attorney saying, I'm looking at this determination. When it's, as you say, there are some things that are, a little iffy. This is how you're interpreting it. What do you think? So there's always that internal mechanism in terms of, if you're concerned about how a determination needs to be made. You've always vetted it with the attorney,
So it sounds like you just gave us the rule of thumb for what counts as being substantive. So we can just write those down, and there's our log.
So basically, I'm thinking then every time he picks up the phone to call our attorney to run something by him, then he records that and puts this in the report. That's what you all want.
I guess some trigger.
Because the trigger, typically municipalities, as I've always understood it, is the trigger is when it's challenged. In other words, okay, we had a resident say, gee, I think this is not a good interpretation, in this instance. I mean, you've used this, I'd like to finish my thought.
Okay.
Use this instance. Or there's someone on a board who says, I'm not certain about this interpretation. I'm a member of a certain board. I read this differently. Then it's sorted and it's always looked at from a legal standpoint as well. So other than that, you're the professional in your capacity making those determinations, as you rightfully said, constantly. It's constant. You had 260 phone calls since your last, just the calls, forget the emails. At least, out of that, oh my gosh, how many, filling in on code, this is what it means. No, you cannot do that, but this is what you could do. it's just absolutely constant.
I got Americans like Dave. I didn't write down when Dave called the other day. I sent him a code section. I gave him,
Sure.
we talked about back and forth. I gave him the code section. It was done, but if I had to sit there and write it down and go back to it when I go to do my report, I don't have enough time.
You'd be doing nothing
But
but.
I don't think that that's what you're asking. I think you're asking those ones that have to go to the attorney, right? You're not asking
Yeah,
for
I
every
think-
single one.
And I wasn't.
Because what happened tonight will go to the attorney. When there's a resident who made that comment, it will go, I know you will discuss it, and it'll be discussed.
I'm going to try to be more clear with what I'm saying,
Okay.
because it's very difficult, because
Mhm.
I don't have the right language, and I don't know that it's just every determination. I think what the trigger is, and there's no way for the general public, or even the board to know sometimes, and I think Dave pointed out one instance where this occurred, until months after the determination was made, and then that opportunity for questioning or challenge is gone, it's done. The statute of limitations is, they say you have so many days to file an appeal, and that closes the door or opportunity. There's no way for residents to know that a determination has been made, that they might have an interest in questioning.
Every meeting we have is a public meeting. Every resident can come to a public meeting. It's always public. That's the transparency that we have in any
Okay.
municipality. And if they don't go to the meeting and they miss it, well, there has to be some onus on participation in a democracy.
Okay?
As a resident in any municipality. It's like, gee, I missed the meeting, but I want to appeal. Well, wait a second, we're trying to do our best. We post the minutes. There's video, we're going to post a video of the meetings, this meeting tomorrow. There's a lot of ways that the information is there if a resident wants to look at it in a timely fashion. I kind of think we're building a mountain here somehow.
Yeah, the other thing is, for most determinations, it's between me and that resident. It has nothing to do with the
Yeah,
number of
and
residents.
I don't think
You know what I
that's
mean?
really what.
Are you referring to a specific case with a garage?
No, this
No.
was something that came before the PZBA that was tabled at the last meeting, if I'm understanding
That's one.
what you were referring to when Art Pierce called in.
That was one.
Yeah.
Several meetings ago, a
Oh, okay,
resident
so
said
there's another one.
also,
Okay.
and because we had to clarify regarding the process, and it made it sound as if, I wish I could recall exactly the conversation, but it had to do with, this resident was surprised to know a determination had been made, that they would have challenged had they known that determination had been made, and they did not. So they expected us as a board to address it, and that, there was just no way. It had to do with short-term rentals, is my recollection. Then there was an opportunity, I think also, I'm going to go back now in time, that somebody had asked once before regarding a determination that was made on Copperleaf Brewery. And a determination was made regarding its use. Was it an agricultural use or was it a bar? So controversy around that, and then people said, if I'd known about that, I would have, come to the board, I would have asked a question.
I'm thinking.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That I'm talking about information sharing when there are critical, I don't know what other word to use, decisions that are made that might involve some controversy, that they should be brought as part of this report. That's all.
So who identifies the controversy? Like, how does that, I'm trying to understand how
I
that
understand,
happens.
that's why I'm asking for input, because I didn't know how
I
to.
really do wish our attorney were here, because I think he could be helpful with the input. Yeah,
I
Justin,
agree
sure.
that, we're not going to, controversy is not the deciding factor. I think that the way that I would approach this is that it would be helpful to have a record of substantive determinations. And that would both be helpful for the board, because we have fiduciary responsibility and we need to know if we're going to get sued or something. And we need to make sure that, things are being carried out correctly. This is no criticism to anybody here. I'm just saying that, as a general procedure, we should know about things that could be impactful. And I think that the heuristics that we used earlier, which were, going to the mayor and advising her of something, or going to our attorney, and asking for a consultation, I think it's very reasonable that there would be a record maintained of those incidents and provided to the board either in a report or upon request. And so my ask would be that, and the goal here is not to be overly burdensome to anybody administratively, but just to kind of maintain this sort of record. I would see if it's possible to work something like that where we can have a running log.
I'd like to have our legal counsel weigh in as well, yeah. Name and address.
Yep, Susan Loda, 85 South Main. I believe a mechanism is in place, and that would be the function of a board liaison back to the board, which, by the way, has not happened with the planning board in quite some time. But I would think that that liaison would be the person who could determine if it's a substantive, if it's controversial, if whatever. That would be in your capacity, you liaisons, to determine, and that's already in place. It just needs to be functional.
Yeah, just to comment on that. So I watched all of the last meeting with regards to the expansion of the vote. And, there was a certain degree of tabling that went on that was, right, so there's more information coming at the next one, is my understanding of the
Absolutely.
So, as far as the understanding of most items, right, everything we just talked about here, whether or not it's the liaison, keeping informed, right, you guys this is still all public, so it's all moving forward. There's nothing that, I suppose I could have said, hey, there seems to be a controversy, you could watch this, but felt like you guys were moving it forward appropriately and independently.
Let it resolve.
Right, and there's no, so in my mind, like all this aside, the only one that concerns me, like even the issue with Copperleaf, right? That was fairly well, it was publicly noticed, it was discussed in our boards, it came forward to the village board, we had the time to appeal, there was, all that worked, right? That's the way it should work. The only reason why I suppose there's some sense of understanding, really, Lily, with your plight, is with regards, for me anyway, with the residential determination, because short-term rentals are not a publicly noticed thing, right? They just move forward. And so there is that little bit of me that says, are there things that are substantive that are not publicly noticed?
Right.
And those are the things that I think would be really helpful to understand.
So we're taking something that would be typically resolved internally through a discussion of the code with professionals, with, attorneys and, in your capacity, and saying, we need to manage that. That needs to be managed.
No, I think that when you say the word managing, I think that implies a kind of inappropriate overstep when Steve's role, the CEO of the building inspector, is clearly an independent role. I think really this is just a matter of maintaining the record. I appreciate the notion that it would be a liaison role. What I was hoping is that this could be distilled so that it's purely administrative and then there's a record kept. Maybe I agree with Trustee Marshall that, the STR situation was one of those where, it's not something that comes in front of the boards. It's a determination that's made out of band. And it would just be good to pass that kind of stuff along. Maybe that's the only case. And
this is my challenge. Like, I'm hearing the concern, and everything else that we're talking about that I can think of is currently or it's publicly noticed. Right.
It's publicly noticed, and also there's aspects of, these applications that are being handled by other boards, and they're independent boards doing the work on behalf of the village, and, we don't interfere with other boards, and they ask those questions or maybe challenge or make recommendations back to the board about code, if they see a deficiency or, that kind of thing. You've brought things to the board, Steve, where you felt the code was deficient as well.
To be honest with you, I think if you drag out the things that I do daily, some of the determinations, and do it all in front of the public, you're going to open yourselves and ourselves up for a lot more issues.
I don't see.
You have controversy already, and so I just like to keep the process simple as possible. And if there's an issue, I don't know how I would judge what would be substantial.
I think we just gave, I think the idea would be to come up with a heuristic, to keep it administrative, to keep it simple. And the goal would not be to drag up controversy or to interfere. It would just be a part of the function of the board getting information to know that things are on the right path. And, engage if necessary. But as Trustee Marshall was saying, maybe it's almost never necessary.
Yeah, well, the other piece of this too is there have been occasions where residents have, called in or written emails in to you saying, this is wrong, the code doesn't say this, it says this. And you respond, and then, we always copy the attorney in, and they're like, no, they interpreted the code completely incorrectly. And then it's just closed out, So that's kind of, so many times, I would say, what happens.
I treat everything exactly the same.
Yeah.
I guess.
I read the code and how I treat people.
I really wouldn't want to proceed unless, I would like to have our attorney weigh in
Sure,
on any kind of way forward with this, because I hear where you're going and what your concerns are.
Yeah, I mean, even from, and maybe Dorothea could weigh in on this, from a perspective of FOIL, if we get a request about determination, how do we for information?
I don't get FOILs for determinations. It's for paperwork. If it's not a document, it's got to be something I can produce.
Right, so if he makes it,
So let me take this another way.
So determinations aren't always.
Let's say Steve answers a resident on a document in emails. Okay, then you got to have another resident know Steve answered a resident on that. Then they're going to FOIL that. So then I would take the email and I would give that email.
So a determination, if somebody said, what was the determination on some kind of a matter, but it was only a phone call, then
there's no record.
There's no FOILable record.
It
would come up in depositions or something if we were sued for something, but.
That's totally different. That's on my quality record. I have to have a piece.
Yeah, the phone calls are a matter, they would be, they're just how we conduct business. It's just conducting our business on a daily basis. 1 million inquiries come through this office,
And not picking a side in here, but it's hard to know what would be considered substance because you don't know what's going to trigger. It's like a meeting, somebody says, is there anything that's going to be difficult on the agenda? I don't know what's going to be difficult on the agenda until we get to the agenda item, because you never know how a public person is going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would have to be the determination.
Well, we can bring this back and have a conversation with our attorney, and I think,
out of respect to the, residents who asked me this question.
Absolutely.
I felt it needed to be brought before the board for discussion, and
Okay,
we'll either move forward or we won't.
Sure, so the actions to bring in, discuss with municipal attorney.
I think it's good though. So for example, at the last meeting with regards to the expansion of the abode, is that right? Yeah. So that's, I don't know if you guys know, but if you're facing abode going in, it would be behind, right? They've done very well at that location and want to expand. The expansion would be, I believe, fairly close to a lot line.
It does not extend any more than the existing.
Right. So it's a continuation of the existing proximity, and so there's challenges with regards to the visual and accessibility through a back fence under the.
Which is illegal.
It's a private lot.
Okay, but we don't need to litigate or to have a discussion.
I was just stating.
We're still on your report here, trying to move on.
But anyway, the reason why I didn't see anything is you guys are dealing with it. And what also was nice to speak on concerns and issues and considerations like what Art had referenced, whether or not it's a major or minor site plan. That's a determination that is on Steve, and we could, I put a little note, take a look at it and review if I think maybe it's minor or major, but there's a determination by the building inspector and by the planning board already. So the question, where I'm going with this is, two property owners that were close and proximal brought it forward, it's come to the board, we've heard about it, so I guess the process seems to be working.
Can I just hit a little timeout? I don't think we should be discussing an active application that is before another board that is independent.
I was trying not to give any opinion other than stating what's going on.
I just kind of want to just bring it back at a certain level, because they are getting the information they need to make a determination on behalf of the village, just
But let me ask this
level
question
here.
though. So
Okay.
this is important though. It speaks
Okay.
to what Lily's saying,
Mhm.
which is if there is something that has a element to it of, I suppose, controversial conversation and a village resident brings it forward,
Mhm.
when is the right time? I'm not suggesting for this application, but when is the right time for the village board to understand? Is it only after a determination is made? Is that,
There would be a challenge.
so it's only after a determination, you can't.
Or they could, I think, they certainly, it's, your meetings are public, are they not? And
Yeah.
residents can attend?
Yeah,
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 so
right.
any resident could attend and opine to the
Right.
board, and certainly sending correspondence.
Yep.
And, yeah.
And so anyhow, I guess as it pertains to this, which is perhaps why Lily had brought it up, is, I think the system's working, and just you wait for the conclusion of it, and we're all aware of what's going on. But it's the little ones that slip through that are difficult.
Okay,
So I have a question.
yes, okay.
This might be an easy one.
Trying to
This is
move it forward.
completely different than all that, so let's just put that aside.
Excited.
So I just want to ask about the rental unit permits. It looks like you said you have 146 rental units that you think so far that you've discovered, quote. Have any of those been permitted yet?
No.
Okay.
We're sending out the correspondence alerting everybody that this
Okay.
is what's happening, because this is all new for our village, so there's a few more moving parts.
Okay.
It's, that's.
So how long do you think this kind of like discovering what's there, like,
We're close, but, the question would be, do we want to try and implement this in the fall right now, or maybe have it be something that starts at the next year?
Well, there's another piece, though. We're going to be putting when do our sewer bills go up? February? January. So sometime in January, we're going to be putting in another, piece of correspondence. Essentially, everybody gets it. So it'll be, just so everybody knows about this rental registry, because there may be some people who want to turn their house into a rental. You don't know. And just so everybody's on the same page about the registry.
Right, the thought I had spoken to Steve and
Yeah.
Alexandria with this process was to send the initial notification to what we know as rentals or as suspect.
Okay.
And then hit everybody in the village in the sewer bill. So let's say we missed some, they'll get that notification as well.
And we'll put it out in a bulletin as well.
But
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
yeah.
Could we do a January 1st start date, mail it all out, get all those applications back, but then have some leniency with regards to anybody that comes in off of the sewer notification? So just put in there, hey, this is taking effect, it took effect January 1st. If you've not otherwise submitted your application, please do so now, and just waive the fee for the first 6 months or something. Not waive the fee of the application, but waive any permanent.
Late fee.
I think we have to look at how it's established. So my thought process on this was trying to save mailing costs, because obviously it's going to be expensive. It's costly to send it out, because we have to hand stamp all those. But, I mean, it's what the board wants. Do you want a separate mailing, or you want it to go in the sewer bill? Sewer bill's already going
I
out.
think we get them out, sorry.
No, I thought we were going to do an initial mailing.
We're doing the initial mailing
We're
to
doing an
this-
initial mailing to all of the rentals that have been identified. Am I correct?
That
Then we
was
are hitting the village, the whole village, if
In
we've
the
missed
sewer.
anybody,
in the.
right in January when the sewer bills go up.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the timing is pretty close to what you're looking at.
100%. I just think we
Yeah.
should start January 1st rather than start June 1st. And if anybody gets picked up on the sewer, we just simply don't have an administrative late fee or
I
something.
think
You're
that's
talking about permitting.
we left that date open in the letter because that was something I think we wanted to discuss. I'm trying to remember what the response time was.
I don't remember.
I know, we'd have to go back and look at it, but I hear where you're going with that. Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
I
I
would
think it'd
say,
be good to start clean.
Yeah, I agree.
And then backfill it
Right.
with the requirement of January 1st. And as
Right.
long as we get the information by June 30th, there's no administrative late fee or something
Right.
else.
She's-
right, and I think as long as the initial letters right now would be a smart idea.
That's what
so
we're
we
doing.
have a good idea of
Mhm.
the numbers, and then, like you say, send out with the sewer bill and give them, give
It's
everybody.
exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what you may also want to do, just throwing it in there, is as you get them all in, because they'll all be lump sum, then over the course of the full year, the first 6 months, or whatever, you're out there doing the
Yeah.
inspections.
Yeah, 'cause we gotta figure out a way to add it to the Williamson system to really, keep a better track.
That's a whole other thing, we're putting in a software, part of, updating software to be able to address this. So it's not like, poof, we have a registry,
Sure,
we're
sure.
in the process of setting up
Yeah.
from nothing,
Right.
a registry. So
It's all good.
Right, great.
I think we're all on the same page, actually. Okay, moving on, thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Okay, next up, DPW report. Any,
DPW report went out under a separate.
oh, that's right, it did, I don't have it here.
Oh, we don't have a
Actually,
chance
don't
to do that.
Anything for Zach?
Anything we should know about?
Just a couple of questions on the trees. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to look at the tree health assessments that I had our arborist take a look at. Two in particular, one was recommended to come down. One of them is out in front of the blue horn. It's a hedge maple that's been
Yeah,
declining.
I know, it's
for a
looking
few
bad.
years now. And at this point, his recommendation is to remove the tree and replace it.
Is there a timeline? In other words, if it's taken down now, then it won't be replaced until the spring?
I would do it in batches, yeah, I would hope, I mean, that being, kind of a prominent place, I'll probably, put that towards the top of the list, areas to replace trees in.
would we be able to,
I can do it as soon as necessary.
okay, but we could still plant a tree before winter?
I
That's
would
where we're
probably
going?
not, I would probably not take the tree down until winter, because we have enough work to do right now that I don't think I'd be able to fit it.
Could we leave it through the winter and then when we're able weather-wise to plant in spring, just go, oh, that's gone, here's a new one?
Yeah,
Instead of
absolutely.
taking it out and leaving it just
Leave it
with nothing?
Leave it bare, so I can
Because it's
plant.
bare in the winter
The
anyway.
only time that I would not plant probably is in the very peak of the summer. So
Yeah.
I would plant.
Yeah,
okay.
So, provided that we could break ground, it shouldn't be a problem. But yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. It would be,
Because it's in a
trees gone,
high-profile
new trees.
area, I agree.
Yeah, there's sort of like a gap there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if it loses its leaves because it's dying and it's winter, no one will know.
The
Absolutely.
leaves are gone.
It's our secret.
Okay.
Okay,
And then the other one is 57 Rand Place, which is out in the extension going
Yeah.
between Jefferson to South Main. And that one's been declining as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like there's any.
what type of tree is that again?
It's a silver maple.
Oh, it's the silver.
Yeah, which the silvers are prone to.
Yeah, they are.
Declining, they're not, as strong as the sugars.
As the sugars, I know. Could we replace it with a sugar?
Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that's Jeff's favorite tree,
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, just so it's replaced with a native,
Sure. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that being a problem.
Okay, so you're looking for the board to direct you,
Yeah,
give you permission to do that?
yes, please.
For the two trees that we know are,
Yeah, and the other ones, there's a cable, this is on another silver maple on Church Street, and it was cabled at one point, and the cable snapped, so I was not provided with a cost estimate on repairing or replacing the cable, so I'll have to reach out to other tree companies and see if they can give me that cost, but I can't imagine it's going to be too much.
it's just putting the cable back in, the tree isn't compromised?
No, there's some signs of dead in the upper canopy, but it's not anything that would be indicative of the tree declining in health.
Okay, so at least the tree's
Yeah,
safe.
it's a
Okay.
big,
Yeah.
silver maple, so I want to take it down.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
But the two is really what you're looking for from the board?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Lampier,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Lightgev,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Those tree reports are fun to read too. Pretty well written. Cool.
It goes out there with a sounding hammer.
Oh,
I
really?
know, you learn a lot, right?
Listening for hollowness.
Yeah. Hello, if you hear the echo, it's not good.
Yeah. I processed probably, I don't know, like 680 emails. A lot of it's, just junk stuff, but There's a lot that is not on the report, but I try to condense everything on one page, just give you these more stuff.
Are there any other things that you need from the board in terms of any direction? Okay, no, that's good with the trees, thank you, just to keep up with that. Okay, treasurer's report, please.
Me again. Well, you have the bill pay in front of you.
So before we go to bill pay, could I just mention on trees, so when I went to go get insurance on the property on West Jefferson, the pine tree that's in front, they basically said, I'm not gonna insure your house unless you take it down.
Which tree is it?
Mine. So we didn't take it down, we found another insurance company. But it's clearly an issue.
Yeah, that's why you find another insurance company.
Right, fired.
So they had the issue, you didn't.
That's right, which speaks a little bit to the point of the resident earlier.
Yes, it
which is
certainly does.
Sometimes you just have to pay a premium and have some trees.
Yep, loving that canopy. Okay, where are we here? Bill pay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, only thing substantial I want to note on the bill pay, and this is follow-up from our ARPA discussion from the last meeting. I reached out to Scott Herder. We have the initial bill, $7,127.50. That was for the bathroom renovations. I would say, ask the board in a second determination to allow me to take the funds from the ARPA funds to
Oh, yeah, for the
pay for
bathroom.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. I talked to Scott, and he talked to the, is he an engineer?
Which one?
Architect?
Fran? Obermeyer? Fran Obermeyer.
Yep, and they're going to see what they can get me as for a purchase order or signed thing that we can do with their part of the project, that we could use the ARPA funds and lock that down.
Oh, good.
So once I have that, I'll have a number for the board with, we can't expend by December, that we should expend very quickly.
Yeah, but right now you're looking for the motion?
Right now, I'm looking for the motion to approve the bill pay, plus a motion to go ahead and transfer the ARPA funds,
Transfer, okay.
to expand the budget to use the ARPA funds to cover that expense.
I'll make a motion to approve the bill pay.
Second.
Oh, tied.
You can take it if you want, Lisa.
William to go.
All right, trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the ARPA transfer as discussed.
Second.
Okay, trustee Lightgev. Trustee Marshall. Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Cruising now.
We are cruising.
Okay.
And then for your reading enjoyment, I provided our August financials. And I'm not seeing anything too crazy in the August financials. I will say, we're seeing in the revenues, you're seeing a high amount in the refund for prior year's expenditures. And that is the moving of some funds from trust and agency to the appropriate back that were healthcare that should have been given back to the village for that expense from the employees. So we fixed the issue, transferred it appropriately between general and sewer. So that's why you're seeing that. Let's see here, anything really, there's nothing too exciting. Again, I still have to talk with our accountant on the engineer, that's why it's highlighted. I try to keep things highlighted that are negative, to let you know I'm aware. I really don't have anything too exciting in there, unless there was questions from the board. It's August, and we don't really get interesting till March. September will be coming quite shortly. I just got the statements today. Is there any questions from the board on any of this? 'Cause it's hard to make it exciting when there's nothing there.
I'll make a motion to approve the August financials as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Okay. Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, and I have the healthcare that we received. I put it at your spots. Again, I apologize you didn't receive this ahead, but this is something that has to be determined. These are the plans that we offer the employees. This is giving you the heads up and for approval. There is an increase, a little more than we anticipated. I think this is common across the board. It's not too surprising, as we knew COVID would come back to haunt further with the healthcare, because we seniors, when the COVID hit, that it actually decreased, which is very unusual with healthcare. So now we're seeing it. I'm not too concerned at this point with the increase. I think we can cover it within the budget on all fronts. Any questions? Not too many changes with the plan. We have a scheduled luncheon with the staff to go over the healthcare, as we do every year with Bond coming in.
Black and blue?
I'm sorry?
Black and blue?
Black and blue?
What are you scheduled lunch?
Bond.
Oh.
No, we don't have
That
black and
needs
blue for
approval.
lunch.
Thursdays.
I was trying.
No, they're lucky they get pizza.
All right.
But anyway, this is where we stand for healthcare. It came in higher than anticipated, but it's
You
always,
need a motion to approve.
yes, to go ahead with the plans for dental, health, and senior.
Make a motion to approve the plans for dental health and vision.
Senior.
Senior, that you said senior, and I changed it to vision. but
Senior.
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 I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call.
Okay, trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer. Motion passes. And in the same vein, we have a new employee, Mantone, who has been with us, and I need to fund.
Mantillon. Right, yeah.
Mantillon. Okay, we need to fund his HSA, that's part of our healthcare, and I need to fund it for the 4 months up till December. We fund normally January and June, and when a new employee comes in, we break it by 12, and we fund accordingly. So the amount I need approved is $2,233.36, because he has a family plan.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lickett.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes. And before I say I'm done, I think I'm done. Is there any questions for me on anything that I've provided?
Thanks for,
Oh, minutes.
Separate part of the.
well, we do have minutes, but thanks for keeping,
Yeah, thank you.
being so current on the financials. It's really.
I tried, actually, it's one of the best part of my job. I love the balance.
You love that stuff, I know. You live for it. I'm lucky if I'm within 5 bucks. Okay, minutes?
Minutes. Let's see here. We should have had 3 sets, and I'm seeing 2.
There were 2 included.
Yeah, there was a third one, I'm not sure what happened there.
We're good.
Bye all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Zach.
Yep, we're almost done here,
Actually, I
so.
have a DPW member.
Thanks, Susan. Take care.
Oh, hey, Zach.
Oh, he was so close to the door.
I kind of had a building inspector member.
Oh, Steve, you got
Steve, you're not going anywhere.
All right, you want to defer minutes and
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see, yeah,
it should be a quick one.
I'm here till the end.
Yeah, you.
Where does Steve go? Why don't you do yours? since-
All right.
I think he's under his desk. Yeah.
Are we on number items? Is it all right if I go?
So that we
Sure.
let Zach go.
Yeah, so my question, this is more for the board, but Zach, you're involved. Every year we got to do the 5th year in the long-term capital plan. And when we sat down to look at the reserves, they were larger than what we had thought at the beginning of the year. So one of the questions is often, what is in that long-term capital plan? What would we like to be in that long-term capital plan that isn't? And we have to start thinking about, Justin, you and I had talked about this at the beginning of the long-term capital plan, which is the DPW is not going anywhere, right? For 10, 15 years, whatever the number is. But if we want to be able to afford it, we have to know what we want to do and we have to fund it. So one of the thoughts is, before we get into the long-term capital plan update and the budget cycle, would it make sense to ask the question, where are we going with this, the DPW long-term? What's the right solution? Do we fund it? This is probably a consultant cost, right? Do we pay money to have somebody come in and go through all the hard conversations, bring in all the players, talk to you, talk to the administration, talk to us, talk to the town, explore land, like any options on the table, understand where we're going to be, be, and then if we want to be somewhere different than we are, or if we want to be where we are and just build new, at some point that building's coming down, is my guess,
Oh, I would think so.
right?
Whether we want to or not.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay?
As long as the duct tape holds.
What I'm a little scared about is the idea that we're going to go into a budget cycle, hit a balanced budget, and there's no money for a line item for something that we're going to need. And I just want to know that we're deficient in it, if we are, and when we're going to address it, and how are we going to address it. And I think to a degree, a consultant's the only way we find that answer. And I'd like to know before we get into long-term capital plan and the budget.
So why don't you be thinking about that?
Absolutely.
It's a member item, you know,
Yeah,
so.
there's no action
Yeah,
as much
Yeah,
as
but
it is.
I agree. I mean, it's a biggie.
I'm
it's
glad this is actually a conversation that's happening now.
Yeah.
It's needed to happen.
It's not the elephant in the room, it's the elephant on the canal.
Yeah.
We
That's how I look at it.
we all know what the conversation points are, we all know
Yeah.
the different sides of the
Mhm.
different stories. But at some point, some board's got to make decisions and communicate it,
And how
whether or
do-
not we all agree or
And how
don't.
do we set that up and what does that look like?
And I
Yeah.
think
Fair
it
for
may
that.
involve the community, and I think it may involve a consultant. And I think
I
that
think
comes
we
with
need
cost. And I just would rather have it done before we go into a budget season with another long-term capital plan year getting added to the end. We could punt and do it next year, but I don't see a lot of the benefits of punting.
I don't either.
So, no, I think
Start in.
I think it's a good discussion. It seems that there are probably a small handful of consulting companies that do that kind of work with municipalities. It seems like all of those have probably helped with transition plans of this sort in the past. If somebody wanted to reach out and ask them for case studies of 2 or 3 times when a municipality has invited them in, show us what their proposals were, and give us kind of a pitch deck of what they've done in the past, maybe it helps to guide our discussion.
That's a great point. Maybe
Yeah.
we just get pitches.
I was going to say, also we could reach out to Scott Harder, who may know some of those, some of those companies as
Right.
well. He might be a good starting point to get some at least background information on who does this stuff. Dorothea, do you have any other thoughts?
I have a thought. I think, and I agree with Zach that the building, it's about time we had a discussion, and I agree the building probably needs to be demolished and replaced. But I think for the public, we need that determination from an outside source, the current conditions of the building and the recommendation that it be removed, because it is a village asset. So we're looking at it, I go down there, I look at it and go, yeah. But that's me, that's not someone telling the board that officially, you have a problem here and you need to remove this building.
Wouldn't that be part of what the consultant would do?
Right.
I would
That's
think
what
that
I'm
would be
thinking
the
that would be
first.
part
That's
of,
one piece of it.
here, because they, when you consult, here's the current situation.
Give us the
Right.
options.
Here's, the next steps,
Right.
do we need to take action? Yes, no.
Yeah, I
Do
think
we?
it
And
just,
what does that look like?
Right.
I think that just needs to be a part of the
Sure.
first,
Sure.
the very first step, that the asset is defunct.
My first thought is to Justin, your point, have some people pitch us, right? Or grab some pitch books or whatever it may be. What's the outcome of this endeavor? And then from there, we can ask about costs, or would we have to put out a bid for a consultant?
Yeah, you would put out RFQ. for
Okay, so we put out an
qualifications.
RFQ or something like that, and then we hire. It'd be good to see what we can get out of this, but at the end, I think this is a long-term plan. We'll get to make this determination with a consultant. They're gonna ask, well, when do you wanna, do A, B, and C, and we'll make some decisions, but I think it's good to start.
This is the good place to start.
Better now than when the building falls over.
I'm guessing, it's slowly going to continuously fall apart, but if we put, 10 years to be ready,
That's right.
this is the place to start.
Sure.
Yeah.
Lots of time
The goal is to start planning.
to start planning
Yeah.
this out.
Yeah.
And I also think too, and again, this is a difficult conversation with residents. I'm all about if reassessments occur, lowering the rate. But I'm also very aware of costs that we like vehicles, infrastructure, DPW building, things that have to get paid for as well, right? That, so anyway, there's this balance, and it'd be nice to have it, so.
No, thanks. Any other member items from you?
I did,
I knew it.
thank you. So it sounds like seeker for the LWRP is gonna be next meeting. We didn't ask Jeff that, but I think that's after the 29 days or whatever, so we'll do it then.
Right, we did hear from the county today.
Okay.
The DOT. But that's not all the agencies, and we might not hear from all the agencies, but I have to give them the full 30 days.
Okay, and just continue that thought, and then we'll switch to Steve, which is from the review of the conversation, or the review of the planning board's meeting, it's not delaying their work on the LWRP. I believe they're asking the administration or Steve for some information or somebody about where the
network is being
USDR lies. Yeah, okay.
Network
So
is being-
I'm done with that seeker one.
Okay, yep, Lisa, if you
All right,
have
quick,
something.
yeah. Steve, as far as the old Great Northern building with the Asian restaurant, Mark Tang's,
Pardon?
the Asian restaurant that was going to go in the old Great Northern
Where
building.
Blades?
Yeah, we haven't heard any, I haven't heard.
So we don't know anything that's going on
Nothing.
there? Okay, no movement, because I heard rumor that they walked, but we don't know anything?
They may, this is kind of the story with that building, because we
I know,
do the
it is.
approval, we get all excited, now we're gonna get cappuccino and Italian pastries, and then no. Now we're looking at Asian noodles, we're all excited, and.
So we don't
yeah,
know.
Yeah, so,
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I know.
There was
doesn't want to
so
run
there's
the
a
ball?
plumber working in the parking lot there.
Yeah, I saw someone over a truck there working in the park, or, somebody working it, but I haven't seen any peeking in the windows, doesn't look like anything.
There's nothing.
going on.
no, I just walked by there's nothing.
Okay. All
And the
right.
gentleman who's supposed to be running it owns,
A couple of them,
very
yes.
successful
Right.
restaurants.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. And I don't know if this pertains to you, but I just want to bring it up to the board. Have we ever discussed, or has there ever been any ideas about what to do with the former gas stock building at Shane Place?
The former what?
The gas stock,
Oh.
the building right at Shane Place?
Where the gas pump
Yeah.
was for the boats, the little outcropping of cement where there's.
No, but I mean, that's something that we can look at, obviously.
Because
when
we own
When
that,
we go down
correct?
next week, 2 weeks.
Well, I don't know that, do we own
I
that,
thought
or
that
we are
that's-
permitted?
I'm not sure, that might be Mike Newcomb's.
That could be Nukes.
I heard-
I just
yeah.
thought that might be Newcomb's, but I'm wondering, he would have to be permitted through Canal Corporation,
Which, yeah, I would assume that's where it started. I don't know whether.
we would have to research
The
that.
gas
That would be
station was
research.
abandoned, those pumps are abandoned, if that dock was then donated or whatever.
You know what, I bet you Jeff would have the research on that, if anything.
See, I thought that the village owned it. No? You
We
don't
don't
think the
own
village owns
anything.
it?
No, I don't
I
think,
don't.
Okay,
but
okay.
well, you know what, we
We
can,
can look at
I'll call Jeff and ask him
Okay.
just to
Okay,
take
perfect.
a look. Yeah,
Right, that's all I wanted to,
mhm,
that's all, Steve, for you.
okay.
That's it.
Any other member items? Thanks, you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Now
We
please
release
go.
you to the universe. Thanks again. Okay, have a good evening. Okay.
The only other one I had was, are we gonna put the trees in the last ordinance on the next agenda, just so we can revisit the yay nay, or what we talked about there?
You want the legislation that was drawn
Yeah.
up?
I don't see any reason not to at least bring it up and reaffirm what we've already said or not done, because, obviously, when you have residents talking about it, it's good to say, here's where we were, here's why I said no, here's why, some of us may have said yes.
Sure.
Again, it's the type of thing I don't mind saying, if I continue to say no like I did last time, at least I can reaffirm it to the public as to why.
Sure. Of course, let's put it on. That's an agenda item. Yep.
I have a couple more, too.
Oh, Lisa still has some more, sorry.
So last board meeting, and I think I brought this up to Dorothea, we talked about possibly getting together with some of the property owners of some of our storefronts that have remained empty. And I know that residents are concerned about that, and we have talked about ways of thinking of what we want to put in our storefronts. And have we ever thought about getting some of our big players together to discuss how we can move forward in getting some of those buildings rented? Do you think that we could have some kind of coffee conversation with some of the big players and invite them to sit down with us and
I mean, I meet with them just periodically, because I meet with different
Mhm.
entities and owners of businesses or commercial property, just, like, how you doing? You know, I mean, that's just a
That's
more,
just-
you know, my reaching
Yeah,
out on
yeah.
behalf of the village, if there's any concerns type of thing. This seems to be a little bit more formal, like
Right,
there's something that's been identified and we want to talk to you about addressing it,
Yes.
is what I'm hearing.
exactly.
Um,
What are your thoughts?
uh,
It's a
Just
member
trying to
item.
think.
We can't do much, but.
No, but we could put it on the next agenda, you know, so we can publicly discuss an action to take. What are you thinking?
Well, again, I tend to be a little bit more hands-off, and I'd rather just have the code allow or disallow what you want and change it over time based on what you're getting, and not necessarily have it be, you know, chat with this person, chat with that person. But it is good to build camaraderie and build
That's kind of what I
awareness,
think.
but does it change action?
I don't know, it may.
I don't know.
We've never tried it.
Yeah, we're certainly welcome to perhaps have a business symposium or a landlord symposium.
I would do it in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce then, you know, and do it much more as a little bit of a broader outreach rather than identifying, you had an empty store, you know, I just wanted to be, you're more collaborative, you know, it's a little more
Sure.
collaborative. Also, you know, the idea that we would take action without addressing it with the property owners that would be affected, I think, I agree with you, we're kind of getting on the front head of this, you know, instead of saying, yeah, we're going to do this. It's like, whoa, wait a second, you know. So, you know, that's sort of where I'm coming from in terms of, you know, they're contributing to the community economically, they
Yeah,
get
it's good
property, you know.
community.
Right.
What if we tried to have a village business panel discussion every 6 months? And we invited 4 or 5 different people to sit here where we do. And then we maybe are in the audience, or one of us is up here, or maybe 2, whatever, it's a big enough table. And then we just have like, kind of like the leadership conversations, Mayor, that we have with the town and the school board, right? Not quite like a chamber event, but rather, hey, you're in the village, we want to have this open conversation about these 4 or 5 topics, have it open to the public. It's not a village board meeting, because there'd only be 1 or maybe 2.
Well, why wouldn't we publicly notice it?
Well, you still publicly
So we
notice
could
it,
all
for
be
sure.
here.
Definitely,
You know,
definitely.
no, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's, you know, if we're going to do it.
But it's
let's
not like
just do it.
anybody's making decisions, you're just up there building an understanding. And so there could be questions from the community.
It'd be a forum, it'd be an open community forum, business forum.
And I love that idea, but again, I think we need to bring it back to the chamber. To me, that seems to be a chamber thing. I mean, I
Maybe
think.
they host it.
Right, I think that they need to do it. I think that we really need to have the chamber buy into the fact that our village businesses really need some special attention, and I would like to see that come from the chamber.
So I'm meeting, well, not meeting, but the chamber's having an event next week, so I'll bring it up. Why not?
Maybe it's hey, we're thinking we want to do this. Would you do it? Would you like to do it instead?
I would think they would.
I would
I mean,
think
I would
so.
think it's such a positive thing.
I think so too.
You know, to bring in all the business owners, you know?
So, but it's a good thing to not blindside them with different things that we
Yeah,
might
I
do.
just
And to let them feel like a part and have,
Yeah.
you know, have a seat at the table. One last one quickly. The pocket park across the street looks beautiful. My husband and I were walking by and he said, what happened to holiday hats? And I said, you know, they're done, they go to Florida. And he says, have we ever thought about bringing in other food trucks and have them there all year round? I mean, now we've got a nice space.
I think it'd be great in
It's
the
a
town.
collaboration, people love to come and sit there, and why do we have to just do it for the 2 months in the summer?
I agree with you 100%, and that has been brought up over and over again. And, you know, the application goes to the town owns the property, and then we just get the application to approve whatever
Right.
they want to do. I would think it would be an opportunity for any food truck
Right.
Yeah, I think they have to
talk to the town.
apply
get
to the town.
Yeah,
So
because
this would be a
we-
town thing.
No, it's both, because we wouldn't approve any food truck in the village there on someone else's property unless the property owner, which is the town, approves it first.
Okay, so it's got to go to town,
Yeah,
and
so-
then it comes to us.
Yeah, so it's kind of perfunctory really with Charlie, because we, you know, it's just every year, he comes back, it's seasonal. I love that idea.
So
I
then
think
maybe
it's
we go to
great.
the town and ask them if they could send out a notice to the food trucks that are available in Rochester, because I know there's probably some kind of listing.
Well, I'm meeting with
And
Bill Smith
encourage.
next week.
Okay, there you go.
What if you-
That's a great idea.
So this is a question. what if you ask them about an intermunicipal agreement where the village assumes the applications for the food trucks during X season, right? So it could be now till spring.
Mhm.
Because one of the things that the village doesn't want, or the town doesn't want to do, is my guess, is why Holiday Hots is in there for 6 months out of the year, is they don't want to deal with the repetitive, persistent application process of every single time there's a new food truck. And I don't know if our code allows us to have an approved food truck at any time and have it be random without it being somebody specific.
The town will always receive the application for a food truck regardless. It's not even about our process, it's theirs.
Right,
That's all.
but it's also here, so we have to see it. We have to approve it every year.
After it's been
So you're saying whatever they approve, we would just say yes?
What I'm saying is,
What, I mean, I'm trying to understand how that would be reflected.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to create randomness of opportunity for residents to not, I mean, we love the Hots, but my concern would be if we just go to Bill and be like, hey, how about you doing, think about something year round and you utilize that, what you just did. They might say, okay, and then we get an application for 6 months for the same food truck, right? Or same vendor. I'm trying to figure out a way to create randomness.
I can answer this.
Perfect.
Okay, because you all go to have you ever been to the Brighton Market or Public Market? Okay, so they have different food trucks. And you know what, sometimes there's the regulars, but they just have them random. Not random, but they have signups so that you get a slot. And it's like, yep, you can be here on this weekend, or, you can be here for a week, or, whatever. Because I was just thinking of, what is it, Mercury Coffee, the little coffee place that we had the pop-up. Everybody loved it. Fortunately, they're so booked out, but that would be a really cool thing to have, a little pop-up over there. So maybe my discussion then with Bill is, we were all talking about this, and would the town consider having, signups for food trucks, once Charlie's gone or whatever,
Or can we
Charlie
sign
may
up?
completely, I don't know if he will retire now to North Carolina.
Or is there a way for us to assume the sign-up responsibility? So they submit an application for a food truck vendor that we then approve contingent upon our final determination as to the vendor.
That can be sorted, but I just
Something
want
like
to float the idea with Bill,
I like the idea of, if the town has
Great
specific
idea.
vendors that they'd like to have consistently, like.
They know a
us,
lot of vendors because of, obviously the events,
but-
Okay, great.
Yeah,
it's
I like the idea of really
thought.
rotating and, Lily.
To me, off that a little bit, I don't know why, the festival, the food truck festival, for instance, I assume that they pay a certain fee to be able to participate. And then all of that money, do we get a part of it as a village?
Probably not.
No, we don't.
No, we just.
Just saying, I think.
I know.
So are you giving me another thing
So
to
she's got the revenue bug too.
bring up? I know.
We've got the revenue
It's all
bug. We're
about,
just trying to
you're
figure
using
out how to
time.
get some money in here.
Venue?
How would that work?
I don't think it works.
That's
To
how
be
it would
honest,
work.
That's good.
I love all the ideas, but I know, I'm such a poo-poo. Because the same thing happens candlelight night. Those
Yeah.
vendors pay to participate, and it's part of the cost of putting on the event. So it's a
I don't know.
fun.
They're recouping the cost for the event.
Yes, I
Right.
understand a portion of that, but there must be a profit for someone somewhere.
Well, I can tell you,
Is there an
I
accounting
can tell
at
you, yes, with candlelight night, there definitely is, and any profit goes, I believe it goes either, it's split, I think, well, the pub crawl goes to
Chamber.
the food
That I
covered,
know.
and then I think from candlelight night, I think it
Chamber,
goes
right?
back to the chamber for, all their activities back in the community.
Uh-huh.
And is that a problem?
Generally speaking, no, for candlelight, but I was thinking specifically of the food truck festival, which is on top of. I'm sure it's some expense to the village regarding the trash pickup afterwards and
Yeah,
the,
does DPW take care of any of that?
No,
It's all
it's all town, all the town, and they do a great job.
Yeah, I think too here, because events like this are wonderful to have in the town.
In the village.
I think the type of thing here is you try to make it as easy as possible, whether or not it's the food truck or festivals or, something in the backyard of the parking lot down on Shone Place, right? Whatever it may be, you want to try to keep it incredibly straightforward, simple, and efficient. And costs, no matter how small they may be, sometimes feel like it's not worth it. I'd rather as a resident
Like a
just pay it. Yeah, I'd rather as a resident just have to pay my share of that because it's the experience of that I like more than the cost that I'm paying.
Yes.
But what you're saying that the food truck festival's for profit for the town?
I'm just saying, do they?
The town puts this on for the benefit of the entire community, and it's a line budget item for the town. You know,
Okay.
like, they pay for the sound stage, they pay for the
All right.
security, they're picking up the tab,
Yeah.
and the village essentially just hosts it, in
Got it.
terms of providing the village.
I was
And our
wondering if
businesses get
a profit
money,
was
and
involved.
I don't,
they're not in it for a profit.
no, I don't
It's-
think
okay.
so.
It's simply a community event, the
It's-
same way the
Okay.
concerts are.
Yeah.
That's
you
like
know.
anything we do with the public, it's not necessarily,
Got it.
not charging, it's.
Yeah.
Admission or anything?
No,
No,
it's not, it's not a,
Okay.
typically, it's just going back to the expense line to cover the
Okay.
cost of
Mhm.
doing it.
I don't even know, like, this is off topic, but a little bit close. I don't even know if the school collects when the bills use their parking lot to ship them to the training center. And
No, I think they
Bills are
they
clearly
provide-
a for-profit organization.
Nope, they provide the parking lot, and then there's like the porta potties
Yeah.
there and other,
But people don't
any.
pay to use that shuttle, do they?
People pay a buck.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just to cover, I think, the cost of the driver.
But I'm saying, like, the
No,
school,
really,
the school
they don't-
doesn't
yeah,
rent their
it doesn't,
lot.
but they don't make
just
a
open it up.
profit. They don't
No,
make a
no,
profit.
it's not,
Right,
it's,
right,
believe
there's no
me,
profit.
there's no, okay. Any other member items?
I
Yes,
have to.
Yes.
I forgot one thing.
okay.
I need a determination from the village board. We're moving away from filing cabinets to shelving for the archives. So I need the authorization to appropriately dispose of cabinets by selling them, whatever.
It's a member item, though, so we can't take
It's
any
an
action.
extension of the village clerk report.
Oh, it is. We're kind of.
Yes, it is, okay.
I
Returning.
might own
Okay, so you are returning to, just
The
for
clerk's report.
the public,
Report.
this is still
two items on the
Another
clerk's report that I want to.
portion of the report. I just want to make that clear.
Because we
have
don't
left-
have any more use for the cabinets. They get too heavy. It's not a great filing system with them.
So you're gonna put them on Buy Nothing Pittsburgh?
I can put them out for sales.
Yeah,
as an
it's
ad.
Travel value at least.
Yeah, there you go.
I can sell them
I
to
make a
the
motion
employees
to-
as long as,
I say bring in some revenue.
Okay, just one quick second, just one quick second. We're all getting punchy, I can tell. I just want to make it clear for the record, we're no longer on member items at all.
Yeah, we're back to
We
the
are
clerk.
back to the clerk's report,
Correct.
so the board can take an action.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I just want
I'll
to
make a
declare
motion.
surplus that I.
We
can
have a
go ahead.
motion, don't overdo it.
I'll make a
You're getting
motion
yes.
to authorize the clerk to properly dispose of the no longer needed filing cabinets.
Second.
Okay, we have roll call.
Okay, trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Lightkit.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, what's number
The
two?
second item is doing with the village website update. And part of the updates is getting new photos for the website. And one of the thoughts was putting out an ad to the bulletin, to the village, to the public to submit photos. So is the board good with that thought? And we bring the ad to.
Yeah, and what would happen is there would be no there would be no attribution, if I understand. In other words, people say, hey, we took a great picture, can you use it? Once we receive it, if it's accepted, it's nothing
It's good.
untoward.
these are just photos of the website.
Yeah, we're just on the
Oh,
banner
oh,
across the
revamping
top.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but, and it would be a policy, and we'll bring you the draft back to the board, but it's really simple, it's just like anything, we own the picture, then, thank you for taking it, it's lovely, we'll put it on our website, but there's no attribution, otherwise it gets too nuts. Nothing more than that, really.
Right.
Is there any kind of photo credit?
No attribution
Oh,
means no photo
I thought you
credit.
meant payment.
Yeah, no compensation.
Okay.
No, it's just somebody took a nice photograph,
Okay, got it.
nothing
Yeah,
more than
just
that.
so we can get more pictures in.
But it engages the village if they.
So you
they
want
see
us to say
something.
it's okay to send a bulletin regarding that?
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Well, because it's for the
I
website,
second.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, roll
Trustee
call.
Lightkit.
Aye.
Trustee Lanfair.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall. Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Are we
I'm done.
done with your report? Thank
Now
you.
can we go to minutes?
Okay, we have no more we're all good? Okay, minutes then. Okay, so first up is what, August 13th?
Yep.
Any comments, questions, or is there a motion?
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
Second. for August 13th.
Oh, hang on.
Discussion.
I didn't even.
Oh, I heard a,
I just, on page 6, one small correction, bottom, the last sentence, it's Colette Yon, not Young.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
YON. Mhm, good catch.
Oh, Colette Yawn.
Mhm.
Yep, YON. Mhm,
Okay,
That's it.
I
okay.
thought it was.
As amended?
I'll second as amended. If Trustee Marshall is okay with amending.
That's fine.
You wanna take it
Okay.
over?
trustee Lampier,
Aye.
trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee Marshall,
Aye.
trustee Lightgev,
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then we have, what is the next one, the 20?
This one, Pierce was spelled wrong in one instance. Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, that-
One.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Actually,
Oh.
in 2 instances there, it's spelled incorrectly.
I will get it.
Global.
corrected.
1 right, 2 wrong. So I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Okay, trustee Coe,
Aye.
trustee
Oh,
Marshall.
Cove is absent.
Oh,
Oh, you were,
oh, you can't vote. Oh, you'll have to, trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Lightgev.
Aye.
Trustee Lampier.
Aye.
Trustee Coe.
Aye.
Trustee Marshall.
Aye.
Mayor Plummer.
Hi.
Motion passes.
Great, thanks, everybody.
Here's your pen.
One of these days I want to say no on the adjournment.